Chapter 970. After being rebuffed by Night Sorrow, Chu Danxian never came to look for Night Sorrow again. Night Sorrow studied his alchemy skills leisurely. He also did business, which was exchanging alchemy pills for ingredients, and ingredients for alchemy pills. His soul power was strong, and even Chu Danxuan's alchemy speed couldn't compare to him. Amongst the 1,000+ disciples of the Heavenly Cauldron sect's West Radiance Peak, Yishang had become an exception. He was someone that no one loved, and because Chu Danxian looked down on, no one paid any attention to Yishang. Occasionally, he would be troubled, but Night Sorrow would just laugh it off. Although he was young, he had already passed the age of showing off. His state of mind wasn't something that ordinary people could understand. Even if he was provoked by a rank 4 cultivator and said a few unpleasant words, he would just laugh it off. In addition, he wouldn't refuse anyone who asked him for help. After a long time, Night Sorrow's reputation in the West Radiance Peak became better. In addition, everyone knew that Night Sorrow's alchemy skills were very high. For alchemy pills below the saint rank, Night Sorrow had never failed to refine them. Some people also knew the reason why Night Sorrow wasn't welcomed. It was because he wasn't willing to take the Peak Master as his master. This made many people admire him, because many people didn't have such an opportunity even if they racked their brains. In the blink of an eye, Night Sorrow had arrived at the Tianding Gate for 3 years. His alchemy skills had already reached the Saint King level. Now, he was studying formations. If it wasn't for that, Night Sorrow might have left the Tianding Gate to explore. The Tianding Gate's rules weren't strict, and it could even be said that they were very loose. As long as you didn't betray the Tianding Gate, you could go out and explore at any time and come back at any time. However, you must lend a hand when something happened to the Tianding Gate. On the other hand, Night Sorrow and Elder Xiang had become friends despite the difference in age. They often drank tea together. However, Night Sorrow's main body's comprehension of the will of heaven and earth wasn't enough. He knew that this was normal. If it was so easy to comprehend, then the king's realm would be everywhere. Just as Night Sorrow was planning to send some alchemy pills to the main body and some resources to the 9 regions world, Chu Danxian found Night Sorrow. I plan to participate in the Alchemist Conference. You will accompany me as my assistant. Chu Danxian said to Night Sorrow. My West Radiance Peak has many elders who are better at alchemy than me. I'll pass. Yishan didn't want to join in the fun, and he just wanted to cultivate in peace. Tangs, tangs. S is for you, why do you have so for you? I don't care if you are Ku Kai or Tang Yuan. Go to the side. Who do you think you are? Go to someone else. Don't talk nonsense with me. Night Sorrow looked at Tang Yuan and roared. His aura subconsciously suppressed Tang Yuan and forced her to retreat. I can go and do what an assistant should do. But please remember, don't disturb my cultivation after this. Night Sorrow finished roaring at Tang Yuan and looked at Chu Danxian. Chu Danxian nodded. She was also helpless. It wasn't suitable to ask some elders to be his assistant. Firstly, they might not be willing to be a supporting role. Furthermore, she had some understanding of Night Sorrow's alchemy skills. No matter if it was his proficiency or technique, no one else could compare to him at the level of an alchemy grandmaster. The Alchemist Union was an independent force in the profound sky world. Any alchemy grandmaster could join. The Alchemist Union would often hold a conference to promote exchanges. This time, the conference was held at the Big Dipper city that Night Sorrow often traded at. That was the capital city of the Big Dipper Empire. Night Sorrow had mentioned this matter to Old Xiang when he was chatting with him. Looking at Night Sorrow, Old Xiang smiled, then you can go. It's not good for you to be too calm at such a young age. Young people should be full of vigor and vitality. In fact, you could have signed up yourself. There's no point in fighting for fame and fortune. I can do it myself, I don't need the approval of others. Night Sorrow shook his head and said. You're right, but it's not comprehensive enough. For example, if you're a monarch-grade alchemist and someone wants to refine a monarch-grade medicinal pill, wouldn't they have to look for you and pay a huge price? Wouldn't that be a great help to you? Elder Xiang said. Knight Sorrow thanks Old Xiang for his guidance. Knight Sorrow nodded to Old Xiang. There was still some time before the alchemist assembly began, so Knight Sorrow continued to study alchemy. His alchemy skills had already reached the same level as his cultivation, and he had already become a high-grade Saint King-grade alchemist. It could be said that in the absence of King-grade alchemists, his alchemy skills were outstanding. After finishing another round of alchemy, Yang Kai poured himself a pot of heart-cleansing tea to taste when Chu Danxian came to call Knight Sorrow to set off. The mysterious Heaven World's transmission arrays were quite developed, so after a few teleportations, Chu Danxian brought Knight Sorrow and Tang Yuan to Big Dipper City and settled down in an inn. After settling down, Knight Sorrow went to the city's largest medicine store. Little friend, the materials you requested have already been prepared, so we don't owe you anything, an old man inside the medicine store said with a smile. I brought some pills this time, old Zhang, you still owe me, Knight Sorrow said with a smile. That's not necessarily the case, this time we've obtained some top-grade materials, old Zhang smiled and led Knight Sorrow into the VIP room. You say that every time, I don't believe you, old Zhang, Knight Sorrow said as he sat down. He was a VIP here and was very familiar with old Zhang, so he spoke very casually. Alright, but I can give you a piece of news, this time there really are some top-grade treasures appearing, King-grade Silver Dragon Bone and Silver Dragon Blood Essence. Silver Dragon Bone is a top-grade artifact refining material, you can't obtain it, but the Dragon Blood Essence is only for top-grade alchemists who need it, no one will touch it. You can try, the auction will be tomorrow, old Zhang said. I don't have much capital, Knight Sorrow really wanted the Dragon Blood Essence, it was a supplementary material for his myriad Dao Tomes cultivation. Let's go take a look, the auction house can't miss out, old Zhang said with a smile. Knight Sorrow nodded, going to take a look was free, and if he couldn't afford it, he wouldn't lose any money. When they returned to the inn, Knight Sorrow was faced with Chu Danchuan's dissatisfied gaze. Knight Sorrow didn't mind, or rather, he was already used to it. There are only 7 days left until the alchemist assembly, I don't want any accidents, Chu Danxian said coldly. After returning to his room, Knight Sorrow counted his assets. In the past, he had over 30 Holy Spirit stones, but after years of accumulating wealth through alchemy, he had only accumulated 60. In other words, if the Silver Dragon Blood Essence exceeded 60 Holy Spirit stones, he would have to give it up. Knight Sorrow quietly rested in the inn for a day, then followed old Zhang to the auction house. The auction house's security was very strict, and it could be said that no one could enter without a number plate. This was Big Dipper King's territory, so no one dared to mess around. Knight Sorrow and old Zhang sat down and waited for the auction to begin. However, something that disgusted Knight Sorrow appeared, and that was that Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan also appeared in the auction house. #KV. One is the real deal, while the others are pirated versions. Knight Sorrow had no choice, as he couldn't leave. He felt that these two women were ghosts with ill intentions. While Knight Sorrow was thinking, Chu Danxian also saw Knight Sorrow. Her eyes were filled with confusion, then anger, because Knight Sorrow's seat was much more honorable than hers. Speak. Chapter 971. Knight Sorrow turned his head to the side and pretended not to see Chu Danxian. He didn't care about that anymore. He could do whatever he wanted. He was a disciple of the Tianding Gate, but he didn't need to care about anyone's feelings. Knight Sorrow wasn't afraid of being expelled. He hadn't done anything to betray the Tianding Gate. If Chu Danxian wanted to find trouble with him, he had no choice but to accept it. The auction items were sold one by one. When it came to the Silver Dragon Bone, it reached its climax. This is the bone of a fallen king-level silver dragon. We don't know how it died, but a king sent it to be auctioned. Its authenticity is guaranteed by our Big Dipper auction house's 10,000 years of reputation. The auctioneer gave a simple introduction. His words were simple, but everyone understood what he meant. The owner of the Big Dipper auction house was Big Dipper King. Would Big Dipper King auction fake goods? Of course not. In the end, the silver dragon bone was sold for 300 Saint Spirit stones. This made Night Sorrow feel embarrassed. Back in the Nine Regions world, Night Sorrow felt that he wasn't lacking in anything. Now, however, he felt like a country bumpkin. Night Sorrow didn't have much hope for the silver dragon blood. There were too many rich people in the profound heaven world. If others wanted it, he couldn't compete. The starting price of the silver dragon blood was 30 Saint Spirit stones. Night Sorrow raised his hand and bid 40 Saint Spirit stones. Every bid had to be at least 10 Saint Spirit stones. What surprised Night Sorrow was that no one bid. That was 3 whole chunks of silver dragon blood. The auctioneer called out 3 times. Night Sorrow felt that time was passing very slowly. Only when the auctioneer's hammer fell on the table did someone call out a bid. However, it was already too late. What's going on? You managed to get it? The elder looked at Night Sorrow in surprise. He had brought Night Sorrow here to take a look, but he hadn't expected that Night Sorrow would actually manage to get it. I didn't know that no one would bid for the silver dragon blood, Night Sorrow said with a smile. Night Sorrow then noticed that Chu Danxian had bid for 2 alchemy ingredients. However, they were both at the starting price of 20 Saint Spirit stones. After the auction ended, Night Sorrow paid the Saint Spirit stones and obtained the 3 chunks of silver dragon blood essence. Young man, you really know your stuff. This old man was still thinking about the silver dragon bone in a daze and actually missed it. At the entrance of the auction house, the old man who had bid late greeted Yishang. I'm sorry, but this is really important to me, Yishang said apologetically. Hee, don't worry. A gentleman doesn't take away someone else's love. This is yours. The old man smiled and left. Yishang said goodbye to Elder Zhang and returned to the inn. Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan appeared in Night Sorrow's room as soon as they entered the inn. You're very rich. Is there a problem? Night Sorrow replied indifferently. Night Sorrow didn't like Chu Danxuan's tone. How can you say that? Tang Yuan saw that Night Sorrow was a little unconvinced and directly said. Then how can I say that? I can't enter the auction house or can't have Saint Spirit stones. Also, look after yourself. Don't ask for no reason. You don't have the right. Night Sorrow looked at Tang Yuan and replied. As an elder, I can't even ask. Chu Danxian replied to Night Sorrow. There's a limit to everything. No one is a fool, and no one will always have a good temper. Don't scare me with the threat of being expelled from the sect. You know I don't care. Yishang didn't want to hold back anymore, because these 2 women had no bottom line. You're very good. Chu Danxian said and brought Tang Yuan back to her room. Master, what's the point of expelling him from the sect? Tang Yuan said somewhat indignantly. Chu Danxian glanced at Tang Yuan and said with dissatisfaction, after this alchemy conference, you have to work harder. If you're capable, would Master need to give face to him? Night Sorrow's soul strength enveloped the entire inn, and he clearly heard Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan's words. He knew that his days in the West Radiance Peak were coming to an end. It wasn't that he wouldn't stay any longer even if Chu Danxian didn't expel him from the sect. The 2 of them had no bottom line. His master, Chu Danxian, had no bottom line. Tang Yuan, or rather, Jiao Kuai, her parents had died early, and she lacked education. Night Sorrow disdained to be associated with them. Since he'd thought things through, he naturally didn't mind. Night Sorrow studied the silver dragon blood essence for a moment and felt extremely satisfied. Because these 3 pieces of silver dragon blood essence were very large. Any one of them was the size of a millstone and contained extremely dense energy. After staying for a few days, Chu Danxian brought Night Sorrow and Tang Yuan to the plaza of the Alchemist Guild. The alchemy conference was being held here. All the alchemists that had registered would refine medicinal pills together. The winner would receive generous rewards and the Pill King medal from the Alchemist Guild. This alchemy conference was only held once every 300 years, so it was rather grand, and there were many alchemists that came. Knight Sorrow noticed that there were at least 200 people participating, and each person could bring 2 assistants. There were 9 long tables in front of each official participant. On the first table, there were 3 alchemy furnaces and alchemy materials, and the tables behind were also filled with materials. Knight Sorrow also understood the rules. The 9 long tables represented 9 grades. The first table was filled with medicinal materials for Tier 1 pills, the second table was filled with materials for Tier 2 pills, and so on. If the materials on the 5th table were successfully refined, one would be an alchemy grandmaster, and if the materials on the 6th table were successfully refined, one would be an alchemy grandmaster. If the materials on the 7th table were successfully refined, one would be a Saint grade alchemist, and the 8th table corresponded to a Saint King grade alchemist. The 9th table was an empty table, which represented a King grade alchemist. King grade alchemists wouldn't participate in such a conference. Even if they did, it would be the Pill Monarch Conference, which was held once every 1,000 years. This conference would produce 3 Pill Kings, Amethyst Pill King, Golden Pill King, and Silver Pill King, which corresponded to the top 3. In addition, after breaking through to the level of Alchemy Grandmaster, there would be elders of the Alchemist Union who would ask questions about alchemy. Only those who passed could continue to refine pills. This was to prevent alchemists who were not skilled enough from wasting materials. Knight Sorrow saw Ji Ting and cupped his hands to greet him. Ji Ting also responded with a smile. After worshipping the pill god, everyone stood in their positions. After a person wearing a robe with pill patterns lit the incense, the participants began to refine pills. If they didn't refine pills within the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, they would fail. Knight Sorrow saw the seriousness of the alchemy conference. Refining Tier 1 pills had eliminated more than a dozen people, not for anything else, but because of carelessness and flaws in the pills. Pills are for people to eat. Alchemists should have a sincere attitude. If your father and mother ate pills, would they also refine pills like this? Ji Ting reprimanded the losers and directly drove them out of the arena. Knight Sorrow and Tang Yuan had nothing to do with refining low-level pills. They were just going through the motions. When refining Saint-grade pills, Chu Danxian needed the cooperation of the two. Knight Sorrow knew Chu Danxuan's level. She could refine Saint-grade mid-rank pills, but she didn't have the opportunity to refine high-level pills. Speak. Chapter 972. This was because Chu Danxian had never succeeded in refining the 5-spirit pill. She was a level 6 saint, so her spiritual strength was not enough. Even if she had an assistant, it was still not enough. After some people were eliminated in the first tier, everyone became more cautious. They did not dare to be careless, which led to very few people being eliminated. Knight Sorrow and Tang Yuan followed Chu Danxian. As long as it was not a level 6 pill, Chu Danxian did not need an assistant. Knight Sorrow did not care about Tang Yuan and other people trying to curry favor with her. The level 6 pill was the Origin Spirit pill, while the level 6 pill was the Yuan Qing pill. Now, alchemy grandmasters needed to refine the Yuan Qing pill. In the Alchemist Assembly, there was no need to refine low-level pills of every grade, only high-level pills. This way, the alchemist who passed the assessment would be at the pinnacle of this level. The Alchemist Union opened their mouths and asked some questions about the refining techniques of the Yuan Qing pill. As the questions were asked, some people were eliminated. This was because they could not refine the Yuan Qing pill in theory. Chu Danxian naturally had no problems. She came from the Tianding Gate, so she could refine both in theory and practice. In practice, many people were eliminated. Some of the alchemists were alchemy grandmasters, but they had not reached the peak. Although they could refine the pill in theory, they could not refine it in practice. Next was the refining of the Saint Grade 5 Spirit pill. Following that, the elders of the Alchemist Union would ask questions. Following that, the Alchemist Union's elders would ask questions. Following that, one after another, the Alchemist Union's alchemists fell off their horses. In order to refine the 5-spirit pill, one needed to be a high-level saint-grade alchemist. The one who asked Chu Danxian was Ji Ting. Ji Ting smiled and nodded at Night Sorrow. Ji Ting began to ask questions, but when it came to the fusion of the supplementary materials and the main materials, Ji Ting shook his head in dissatisfaction and announced that Chu Danxian was disqualified. "Hello, Elder, I wonder if I can add on." Night Sorrow saw Chu Danxuan's disappointment and cupped his hands towards Ji Ting. "If you can answer correctly, I can give you a chance." Ji Ting nodded. "I'll give her a chance." Night Sorrow pointed at Chu Danxian. "No, she's wrong in theory. It's impossible for her to complete the refinement. Come, I want to hear your answer." Ji Ting glanced at Chu Danxian and shook his head. After sighing, Night Sorrow explained the situation of the 5-spirit pill and where Chu Danxian made a mistake. Very good answer. You may proceed to the next round and try to concoct the 5-spirit pill. Of course, with your cultivation, failure is certain. I will personally pay for the ingredients. Young people need opportunities. Ji Ting said to Night Sorrow. He had a good impression of Night Sorrow. Just based on Night Sorrow's apology after winning the Silver Dragon Blood Essence, he liked it very much. Night Sorrow didn't have the arrogance of a young man. That Night Sorrow will not disappoint the elders. After listening to Ji Ting's words, Night Sorrow's heart was touched. Ji Ting had perfectly explained what it meant to be a person of virtue and prestige, what it meant to be magnanimous. "Sorry, I won't be your assistant." Chu Danxian coldly snorted and retreated to the competition seat behind the first table. Tang Yuan also left. An old man on the main seat closed his eyes in disappointment. The other elders of the Alchemist Union also shook their heads. Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan's actions had lost their bearing. Night Sorrow didn't mind because he didn't need an assistant to concoct the Saint King high-level spirit perception pill. The Saint Level 5 spirit pill wasn't difficult for him. The old man wearing a long robe lit a very thick incense stick and the 7th round of the examination began. Night Sorrow stood in front of the long table and tidied up his robe. He then closed his eyes and nodded to the furnace. He then began to concoct the 5-spirit pill. Night Sorrow's 2 alchemy furnaces started at the same time. One refining the main ingredient, the other refining the auxiliary ingredient. Everything was coordinated and natural. This young man is not bad. Although his cultivation is low and he will definitely fail, his bearing and technique are excellent. The most important thing is that his attitude is correct. He will definitely grow up in the future. An old man sitting beside Ji Ting said. Elder Tan, it's still too early to say that. Cultivation limits an alchemist's grade, but don't forget about talent. Some alchemists with good talent and powerful soul force can skip ranks to concoct pills. The old man who was disappointed in Chu Danxian said. Elder Xiang is right. Elder Tan bowed to the old man. Night Sorrow heard their conversation. This made him less worried because even if he succeeded, it could be explained by talent. At this time, the 30 or so alchemists who were still persevering all had assistants. So what if they had assistants? Their refining speed was not as fast as Night Sorrow's. Although Night Sorrow's alchemy fire was average, it was very stable and didn't affect his refining speed. Night Sorrow continued to refine the main ingredients while the auxiliary ingredients were refined one by one and fused with the main ingredients. Everything was done naturally and harmoniously by Night Sorrow. 4 hours later, Night Sorrow waved his sleeve and opened his alchemy furnace. Energy wrapped around the pills and they fell into a jade bottle. He also left 1 pill on a jade plate for the Alchemist Guild's upper echelon to inspect. After using his alchemy fire to clean the alchemy furnace, Night Sorrow once again closed his eyes and nodded towards the alchemy furnace. He then took a few steps back. Elder Tan, can any of you do better than him? Elder Xiang looked at Elder Tan and asked. Yes, people like him are born to refine pills. Elder Tan nodded. Following that was the evaluation of the pills. The Alchemist Guild was very satisfied with Night Sorrow's pills. Because Night Sorrow was refining them alone, the main ingredients and auxiliary ingredients were refined at the same temperature. That was why the 5-spirit pill was incomparably smooth. Very good. I really didn't misjudge you. Ji Ting looked at Night Sorrow with satisfaction. Let's not talk about other things. Night Sorrow can't disappoint the expectations of the elders. I can't let down the teachings and support of the elders. Night Sorrow said. Young people like you are becoming fewer and fewer. Don't talk about quitting. If you pass the examination, I am still willing to give you a set of alchemy materials to let you continue. Ji Ting seemed to have seen through Night Sorrow's thoughts and directly spoke his mind. At this time, another person came over to re-register Night Sorrow. Tianding Gate, Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow reported his name. Who is your master? Ji Ting asked. Speaking of which, my previous honored master didn't really refine pills. When I was at the Tianding Gate, I didn't have a honored master. Night Sorrow hesitated and said. He wouldn't lie. After listening to Night Sorrow's words, Ji Ting and the Alchemist Guild elder were both stunned. Night Sorrow, with his aptitude, actually didn't have a honored master. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Next is the Saint King Grade Pill Assessment. This king can't actually refine it, but I know the theory, so don't answer incorrectly. Ji Ting returned to the main topic. Ji Ting asked about the theory of refining the spirit comprehension pill. Night Sorrow had refined a few spirit comprehension pills, so he naturally answered without any problems. At this time, Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan's faces were blue and white. Speak. Chapter 973. What was a slap in the face? Night Sorrow was a slap in the face, and it was a slap in the face. Normally, I would do whatever you say. You would be so arrogant just because you refined some high-grade pills. Now that I can refine pills, you can't. Night Sorrow gave Chu Danxian an iron counterattack. One had to know that many people came to the Tianding Gate to participate in the Alchemist Conference. They didn't know Night Sorrow, but they knew Chu Danxian. At this moment, the people who came to the Tianding Gate to participate in the Alchemist Conference were very disappointed with Chu Danxuan's character. She actually arranged for such a West Radiance Peak disciple to be an assistant, and Night Sorrow was neither arrogant nor humble. The two formed a huge contrast. Your answer is very good. If your cultivation is enough and your soul is strong enough, you can already refine the spirit comprehension pill. It doesn't matter if you fail this time, you still have a long way to go. This king, Ji Ting, invites you to join the Alchemist Guild and also invites you to be a guest at home. After hearing Night Sorrow's answer, Ji Ting opened his mouth and made an invitation. First, it was the Alchemist Guild's invitation, and then it was Ji Ting's personal invitation. Night Sorrow will definitely obey the orders of an elder. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards Ji Ting. Ji Ting laughed loudly and returned to the main seat. He was very happy because Night Sorrow wasn't pretentious. Vice President did well this time. Looks like he recognizes you very much. The image of the Alchemist Guild is very important and needs all of us to maintain it. An elder should have the demeanor of an elder. Grand Elder Xiang nodded towards Ji Ting. This bastard actually embarrassed us. Tang Yuan said hatefully. Chu Danxian shook her head helplessly. She knew that she had lost a lot of face. Not only at the Tianding Gate, but also in the Alchemist Guild. She was also a member of the Alchemist Guild. At this moment, there were only about 10 people who passed the theory of refining the Saint King Grade Spirit Comprehension Pill. Night Sorrow stood in front of the first long table. There is no time limit this time, but you can only refine one furnace. If you fail, so be it. Don't force yourself. After all, you all aren't peak Saint Kings. It's very difficult to refine this Spirit Comprehension Pill. He was the vice president of the Alchemist Union, Pan Yun. He was also the president of the Big Dipper City branch. Following Pan Yun's words, the final test began. Night Sorrow hesitated over whether or not he should try, whether or not he should refine. If he succeeded, then there would be trouble. But if he deliberately failed when he could succeed, then that would be immoral. It would be disrespectful to himself, to Jiteng, and to alchemy. Seeing Night Sorrow standing there without moving, Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan both breathed a sigh of relief. They were really afraid that Night Sorrow would continue to slap them in the face. After pondering for a while, Night Sorrow made a decision. He would respect Jiteng, respect alchemy, and most importantly, respect himself. Nodding at the furnace, Night Sorrow checked the ingredients for the spirit comprehension pill. Vice President Ji really has good eyesight. This little guy still hasn't given up. There's no need to say anything about his persistence. It's one thing for you to provide the ingredients, but the union still has to support young people, Pan Yun said with a smile. I feel like his mentality has suddenly changed. It's as if he has let go of something, Jiteng said as he looked at Night Sorrow's back. Yes, his essence, energy, and spirit have changed. Xiang Taishang also nodded. In order to succeed, Night Sorrow had to let go of some of his cultivation. It was impossible to refine a Saint King level pill with a supreme level pill flame. Night Sorrow released his cultivation to the level of a mid-level saint. He adjusted his pill flame and began refining. This little guy is suppressing his cultivation to refine a top-quality saint-level pill with a supreme-level pill flame. Now that he's a mid-level saint, there's hope for him to refine a Saint King-level pill. Jiteng was surprised for a moment before smiling because he saw hope. He only cared about whether or not the pill could succeed. He didn't care why Night Sorrow was suppressing his cultivation. Xiang Taishang, who was sitting at the side, also smiled and nodded. He understood that this was the result of Night Sorrow's change in mentality. Seeing the change in Night Sorrow's cultivation, Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan were stunned. They didn't understand what was going on. Whether it was alchemy skills or cultivation, if Night Sorrow had shown the same, they wouldn't have bullied Night Sorrow like that. Peak Master Chu, what's going on? A middle-aged man looked at Chu Danxian and asked. Replying to Elder Tian, Danxian doesn't know. Chu Danxian bowed to the man. Sigh, your peak master position is unprecedented. Elder Tian sighed. He was Elder Tian Fu of the Heavenly Cauldron sect. He had given up after refining the 5-spirit pill. He was a Saint King, but he was not a peak Saint King, so he could not refine the spirit comprehension pill. Seeing today's situation, Tian Fu felt that there was a need for the Tianding Gate to convene an elder council to discuss the West Radiance Peaks problem. Even if Chu Danxian was related to the Tianding King, it still had to be dealt with. Night Sorrow's left hand controlled a pill furnace to refine the main ingredient, while his right hand controlled a pill furnace to refine the supplementary ingredients. He was doing two things at once. Although Night Sorrow didn't have an assistant, his refining speed wasn't inferior to the other groups. After all, the competitors were refining the main ingredient while the assistants were refining the supplementary ingredients at the same time. Time slowly passed, and the 10 groups were all refining. Their main competitors were all high-rank Saint Kings, so if they were lucky, they still had some chance. Xiang Taishang, this is a good seedling for your Tianding Gate. However, the Spirit Comprehension pill has too great of a requirement for his pill flame and soul energy. I don't know if he can persevere, said Pan Yun. I don't know, but I reckon he can. He's hiding his cultivation and is willing to be a backup. It's just that he wants to keep a low profile and bide his time. It's just that he wants to live an ordinary life. Who knows what his actual ability is? Xiang Taishang's expression was very calm. Jiteng and the others didn't say anything. Jiteng also thought of another problem. When Night Sorrow interacted with him, he kept calling him elder, but not senior. There was a difference between the two. Elders were older and needed to be respected. Addressing senior required the respect of a junior. As for Night Sorrow's age, everyone knew that he was very young. This was because they could tell from his skin and eyes. It was just like a tree in front of you. With a glance, you could tell whether it was a big tree or a small tree. Time slowly slipped away. Night Sorrow's condition had always been very good. The medicinal pills were still being refined in an orderly manner. There were over 70 supplementary ingredients, and each of them was a master-grade medicinal pill supplementary ingredient. They were continuously refined in the pill furnace in Night Sorrow's right hand before entering the main furnace in his left hand. After that, there were people who continuously gave up. After all, there were many factors that affected success, such as pill flame, soul energy, the quality of the supplementary ingredients, and so on. Only 3 groups of people continued to refine pills, and their cooperation was also very good. As the sky darkened, the lights in the square lit up like it was daytime. It was normal for St. King grade pills to take a day or even longer to refine. In the second half of the night, Night Sorrow finished refining all the supplementary ingredients and fused them with the main ingredients, nourishing and compressing them. If the pill flame and soul energy can withstand it, this furnace of pills can be refined. Tian Fu could see that Night Sorrow's alchemy skills were very profound. The only thing he lacked was his cultivation. Looking at the original chapter. The darkness passed, and a purple aura rose from the east. Night Sorrow's pill refining was also nearing completion. At that moment, Night Sorrow made a move that surprised everyone. Opening the pill furnace in his left hand, he used his right thumb to cut his index finger, and a drop of golden blood entered the pill furnace. Soon after, the pill flame under Night Sorrow's pill furnace burned fiercely. Next, a few milky white pills with a flowing red halo came out of the furnace. Speak. Chapter 974. Night Sorrow waved his sleeve and placed the pills into the jade bottle on the table, leaving one on the jade plate. What are you doing? You ruined a good batch of pills. Pan Yin roared at Night Sorrow when he saw that everyone else had finished refining their pills. Why are you in such a hurry? Let's hear what he has to say first. Elder Xiang said. If I didn't make any changes, then what I refined would be a normal spirit comprehension pill. However, it is recorded in the ancient records that the more spiritual energy there is, the better the effect of the spirit comprehension pill. Since humans are the spirit of all living things, I added a drop of blood essence. Now, this pill is a blood vein spirit comprehension pill. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards the Alchemist Union's upper echelon. Sorry, I was too excited. Now that I think about it, there is indeed such a record. Pan Yin very magnanimously cupped his hands towards Night Sorrow to express his apology. Holding Night Sorrow's pill, all the Alchemist Union's upper echelon took a look. They were all very shocked by the quality of the pill. The blood veins seemed to be alive. Including Night Sorrow, there were 4 groups that had successfully refined the spirit comprehension pill. Now that the 4 batches of pills had been refined, Night Sorrow's pill was placed aside. Of the other 3 batches, 1 was a defective product, so it was naturally eliminated. The 2 batches of pills that were selected were placed together with Night Sorrow's pill and then the rankings were determined. Night Sorrow undoubtedly won first place and received the Amethyst Pill King's medal. The other 2 were the Golden Pill King and Silver Pill King. The Alchemist Union did not let the participants leave because there was still a banquet. This was the Alchemist Union's biggest event in the past 300 years, so they had to celebrate it. The members of the Tianding Gate all came to greet Night Sorrow, and Night Sorrow politely returned their greetings. The only one that did not give Night Sorrow a good face was Chu Danxian. This was because she was very angry and her face had completely fallen to the ground. Night Sorrow did not care about Chu Danxuan's expression because it was not worth it. Chu Danxian was not worth his attention. Night Sorrow greeted everyone from the Alchemist Union, especially the Alchemist Union's Grand Elder Xiang. You know Elder Xiang, don't you? He mentioned you when we met, Elder Xiang said with a smile. My alchemy skills were taught by Elder Xiang. Night Sorrow will always remember it. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards Grand Elder Xiang. After the banquet, Chu Danxian took Tang Yuan to Night Sorrow's place. Are you leaving? I have something to tell you. Night Sorrow nodded and followed her. Since Chu Danxian wanted to talk, then let's talk. After leaving the Alchemist Union, the three of them arrived at a tea house in Big Dipper City. Night Sorrow, what do you mean? After sitting down, Night Sorrow had just asked for a pot of tea when Chu Danxian roared, Night Sorrow, what do you mean? I don't understand what I mean. I just want to quietly cultivate my alchemy skills. Can't you understand what I'm thinking? You're a peak master, can't you take a look at yourself? Night Sorrow was not agitated, he was just expressing his thoughts. Good, you hit it well. A high-level Holy King alchemist, I was blind. Chu Danxian said angrily. At this moment, two men entered the tea house, then their eyes fell on Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan. Not bad, this body is very fleshy. The two men walked directly to Night Sorrow's table. Night Sorrow noticed that the two were Holy Kings, beginner Holy Kings, so they did not put Night Sorrow's group in their eyes. After all, Night Sorrow and Chu Danxian were mid-level Holy Kings. Tang Yuan was negligible. Get lost. Chu Danxuan's expression changed because she knew these two people. They were wanted by the Tianding Gate, they had killed people from the Tianding Gate. I prefer women from the Tianding Gate. Come with us. Maybe we'll let you live, said a tall and thin man. A place like Big Dipper City was very large, some battles were not forbidden. Of course, if you attacked someone from Big Dipper City, then you were dead. In your dreams. Chu Danxian took out her sword and rushed towards the tall and thin man. But how could a Holy King fight a Holy King? Chu Danxian was directly suppressed and captured. The tall and thin man very wretchedly pinched the peak of Chu Danxuan's chest. Not bad. A Holy King fighting a Holy King. You can do it too, said the tall and thin man as he pinched Chu Danxuan's chest with 2 fingers. The other person had also captured Tang Yuan. His large hands carelessly groped her a few times, and then he was about to leave, directly ignoring Yishang. In their eyes, they couldn't be bothered to kill a mid-level saint. I really can't calm down even if I want to. Night Sorrow's body flashed, and he stood at the entrance of the tea house. Brat, do you want to die? The tall and thin man looked at Night Sorrow fiercely. I don't want to kill anyone, but the two of you must die. Night Sorrow's aura directly erupted, and the law of nothingness suppressed the man who had captured Tang Yuan. The soul annihilation / towards the tall and thin man's spirit sea, followed by the skysplitter spear. Night Sorrow's soul annihilation / was extremely fast, and it directly slashed at the tall and thin man's spirit sea. While he was stunned, the skysplitter spear stabbed into his spirit sea. After killing the tall and thin man, Night Sorrow turned around and used the law of nothingness / to annihilate the other man's head. Not even a Saint Crystal was left behind. After putting away the skysplitter spear and taking the two men's storage rings, Night Sorrow threw 2 high-grade spirit stones to the tea house and then left, ignoring the frightened Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan. After a few teleportations, Night Sorrow returned to the Tianding Gate. After returning to his residence, Night Sorrow started to pack his things because he couldn't stay on the West Radiance Peak any longer. Chu Danxian didn't have any intention of waking up, so there was no point in it being awkward when they met in the future. While Night Sorrow was packing his things, Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan arrived at the courtyard where Night Sorrow lived. Are you leaving? Chu Danxian asked. Yes, to avoid awkwardness. Perhaps this place isn't suitable for me. Night Sorrow said. Stay. We won't make things difficult for you in the future. Chu Danxian said. In the past, Chu Danxian felt that Night Sorrow wasn't like a man. He didn't say anything and resigned himself to adversity, so she didn't like him. After what happened just now, she understood that it wasn't that Night Sorrow wasn't like a man. It was that he didn't want to fight. In Night Sorrow's words, he wanted to cultivate quietly. Chu Danxian couldn't see through Night Sorrow's strength now. 2 low-level Saint Kings were killed by Night Sorrow with 2 shots. This was probably something that even mid-level Saint Kings couldn't do. Although she couldn't guess Night Sorrow's true strength, Chu Danxian knew that he was a real big Buddha. The big Buddha entered the small temple, but the small temple was still unwilling. It would be very embarrassing if this matter was spread out. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, I saved you not to ask you to do anything. I just feel that we're all people from the Tianding Gate. Let bygones be bygones. I also plan to leave. Night Sorrow said. The past is our problem. It has nothing to do with you saving us. Chu Danxian said. Just as Night Sorrow was about to speak, a few people came to Night Sorrow's courtyard. It was Elder Xiang and Tian Fu. Speak. Chapter 975. Night Sorrow greets Elder Xiang and Elder Tian. Night Sorrow nodded at the two of them. I know everything about you. I've known about it for a long time. If you don't tell me, I won't ask either. It's good to be friends, said Elder Xiang. Elder Xiang. Night Sorrow was shocked because he couldn't see through Elder Xiang. Let me finish. You have concealed a lot of things. I didn't ask you about it, nor did I pursue the matter. That's because your objective in coming to the Heavenly Cauldron sect is very simple. You want to cultivate the art of alchemy. So, no matter how much you have concealed, even if you have committed grave sins in the past, I won't ask about it. At that moment, Elder Xiang's body transformed, turning into an old man with white eyebrows and a white beard. Disciple greets King. Chu Danxian and Tian Fu both knelt on the ground. Danxian, you're the descendant of my wife. I wanted you to have some achievements, so this clone created an identity to take care of you and give you pointers. But why don't you understand? Elder Xiang said to Chu Danxian. Danxian knows she was wrong. Chu Danxian knew that the problem was serious. Elder Xiang was the Tianding King's clone. In the past few years, I've often come to drink tea and chat with Night Sorrow. I know what kind of person he is. If he really wants to argue with you, he can kill you with one finger. Elder Xiang sighed. Elder Xiang, Night Sorrow didn't hide it on purpose. Other than hiding my cultivation level, everything else is true. I came from a small world and came to the Tianding Gate to cultivate alchemy. I don't have any bad intentions. Night Sorrow felt a little guilty. He and Elder Xiang could be said to be friends despite their age difference. But now, this relationship was going to be blown away. I can understand. It's awkward for a peak holy king to go anywhere, and people will suspect you. But I don't doubt that your clone can still stay here while you cultivate. You can improve your alchemy skills, but I can still give you some pointers on forging and formations, said the Tianding King to Night Sorrow. Thank you, King. Night Sorrow does have a lot of things to do, but no matter what, I won't betray the Tianding Gate. Night Sorrow cupped his hands at the Tianding King. I'm still Elder Xiang in your eyes. Do you understand? Said the Tianding King with a smile. Of course I understand. Hearing the Tianding King's words, Night Sorrow was stunned. That's my friend. In the future, Night Sorrow will still live here, but you have to treat him courteously. You know what that means, right? Night Sorrow, if you have something to do, go and do it. Remember that the Tianding Gate is your sect. This small courtyard will always be your small courtyard. I will also come here often, said the Tianding King to Chu Danxian and Tian Bin as he nodded at Night Sorrow with a smile. We understand. Chu Danxian and Tian Bin nodded. Don't talk nonsense about my identity. Night Sorrow also needs some peace. Don't disturb him if you have nothing to do. Go. The Tianding King waved at Chu Danxian and Tian Bin. After sending Tian Bin and Chu Danxian away, the Tianding King shouted at Night Sorrow, Kid, make some tea. Coming, right away. Night Sorrow smiled and got up to make tea. As they chatted, Night Sorrow learned some things. When he came to the Tianding Gate, the Tianding king had already noticed him. However, seeing that Night Sorrow's aura was calm, he knew that he had no ill intentions and did not stop him. He just paid more attention to him. After I left my hometown, I was worried that I would meet a King Realm cultivator and that there would be trouble. However, things were a little different from what I thought. Elder Xiang is not that scary, Night Sorrow said with some emotion. Actually, you were not wrong. In fact, if you did not join the Tianding Gate and did not have the Tianding Gate sect oath, I would not have accepted you here. Later on, you joined the Tianding Gate. To me and the Tianding Gate, it was a great thing. A peak holy king would fight for the Tianding Gate wherever he went. You have found a treasure. Elder Xiang's face was full of joy. In fact, a force really needed a peak holy king. Night Sorrow nodded. He could understand the logic behind it. Also, I will not hide it from you. The Alchemist Alliance's Elder Xiang is also me. I just wanted to see how long you could endure. Only when I saw you kill those two scum would I feel at ease, Elder Xiang said. After that, Elder Xiang told Night Sorrow to do whatever he wanted. However, if he had any enmity, then he had to endure it. He would talk about it when he had the strength. What he meant was that Night Sorrow was still young and did not need to be anxious about anything. Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan were not calm. They never thought that Night Sorrow, who lived in that small courtyard, would be a peak holy king and a clone. There was only one peak holy king at the Tianding Gate, and he did not care about worldly affairs all year round. They could not even see him even if they wanted to. However, there was one lying in front of them now, and he was being bullied by them. I was still thinking of taking him in as a disciple. What a joke. Chu Danxian laughed self-mockingly. He is also too much. He insisted on Master being pinched twice before making a move, Tang Yuan muttered. Shut up. Put away your wretched bones and reflect on yourself. In the future, you will talk about this and that. Chu Danxian glared at Tang Yuan. After chatting with Elder Xiang for a while, Night Sorrow gained some more knowledge. Then, he planned to leave. During this period of time, he had accumulated a lot of pills. He wanted to send them back to the 9 Regions world. This way, the 9 Regions world could develop faster. After sending Elder Xiang away, Night Sorrow teleported to the Two Poles city. Then, he went through the limitless city to the city in the sky. After checking, he found that no one was in seclusion. Night Sorrow shook the spacetime pagoda and teleported everyone out. Seeing that Night Sorrow had returned, everyone was very happy. They had not seen each other for more than 3 years. This did not include the acceleration of the spacetime pagoda. A big banquet was definitely going to be held. When the news spread, many people rushed over. Everyone asked about Night Sorrow's situation outside. After knowing that Night Sorrow had established a foothold in the heaven profound world, everyone felt at ease. Then, Night Sorrow gave some basic pills to Aoi. 6th Senior Sister, these Tier 5 and Tier 6 support pills are enough for our family. Divide them into 3 portions. Medicine Valley, Night Moon Dynasty, and the Commander's Residence. Okay, I will arrange it. Aoi nodded. This is the 5-spirit pill that can increase the chances of returning to one's origin. If anyone reaches the peak of the Saint Realm, you can give one to them. Night Sorrow took out another bottle of pills. It was the 5-spirit pill that was very precious in the heaven profound world. There are such pills? Wu Lingfei asked in surprise. This is a spirit comprehension pill that can increase one's comprehension ability. As the name suggests, it is a pill that can increase one's comprehension ability. It can increase one's chances of comprehending the will of the heavens and earth. Whoever has reached the peak of the Saint King realm can also come to 6th Senior Sister and take one. However, it will only increase one's comprehension ability by a little and increase one's chances. It mainly depends on the person. However, they can only comprehend the will of heaven and earth, Night Sorrow said with a smile. He knew that it was still very early because in the 9-domain world camp, the only Saint Kings were him and Zhu Jillian. Zhu Jillian's path to the peak of the Saint King realm was still very long. Then what level are you at? Aoi asked Night Sorrow. I joined a sect that specializes in pill refining. Night Sorrow said with a smile. Yang Lei pulled Night Sorrow's arm and shook it. What else can't you say? What level are you at? Speak. Chapter 976. Some time ago, my alchemy technique was upgraded to the Saint King grade and I can now refine Saint King grade pills. Where did these pills come from? I obtained them from alchemy in exchange for materials and then used them for alchemy to make a profit, Yishan said with a smile. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, everyone was shocked. At the same time, they knew how hard Night Sorrow had worked. After drinking with Night Sorrow, many people left because Night Sorrow still had to reunite with his family. Night Sorrow accompanied his parents, wife, and brothers of the god-slaying squad in the city in the sky. It was very peaceful. There was a bit of commotion at the Tianding gate because many people knew that Night Sorrow had obtained the Amethyst Pill King medal. At the same time, with Elder Xiang's approval, Tianbin announced that the West Radiance Peak had a Peak Saint King overseeing it and it was a Saint King level alchemist. This caused the West Radiance Peak's popularity to increase by quite a bit and also made Chu Danxian blush with shame. In the city in the sky, Night Sorrow accompanied his wife on a boat on the lake. He also took a stroll around the 9 regions world. After staying in the 9 regions world for half a year, Night Sorrow teleported to the Everlasting City. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow did not disturb Yen Tian Pa and teleported to the Two Poles City. After exiting the Two Poles City's teleportation array, Night Sorrow felt a little strange. It felt like he was being targeted by a poisonous snake. Night Sorrow stood in front of the teleportation array and pondered for a while before walking towards the teleportation array in the city. Two Poles City's situation was a little special. There were 2 teleportation arrays. One of the more heavily guarded teleportation array led to the Everlasting World and was heavily guarded. The other teleportation array that led to various places in the Heaven Profound World was relatively less guarded. When Night Sorrow was still some distance away from the teleportation array that led to various places in the Heaven Profound World, there was a sudden change. A man waved a long sword and charged towards Night Sorrow. King's Realm on Section Q of the most recent chapter. Night Sorrow saw through the other party's cultivation. It was a 2-star King Realm. This person was the Sky South Empire's Gongyang Lai. He was here to wait for Yen Tian Pa, but he did not find Yen Tian Pa. Instead, he saw Night Sorrow. He had seen Night Sorrow the last time he returned, but he didn't have the time to make a move. Now that he had the opportunity, he wanted to kill Night Sorrow, even if it was just a clone. Night Sorrow activated his space attribute barrier and used 2 slashes in a row, dodging his opponent's domineering strike. After entering the King Realm, what Gong Yang Lai comprehended was sword intent. Therefore, his sword chi contained the will of heaven and earth, and his attacks were fierce and ferocious. Night Sorrow's speed was very fast, but Gong Yanglia's speed was also very fast. His body was like a long sword, which had an extremely strong cutting power toward space. Night Sorrow knew that he was not this Gong Yanglia's opponent. The gap between the Saint King Realm and the King Realm was simply too great. If Night Sorrow wanted to retreat, the best place to do so was the Ultimate World. As long as he entered the Ultimate World, Gong Yanglai would not dare to chase after him. Night Sorrow's speed was fast, but Gong Yanglai, who possessed the will of the sword, was even faster. His body moved twice to block Night Sorrow's path of retreat while at the same time, a sword chi cut through space and fell on Night Sorrow's chest. Night Sorrow waved his space splitter spear to resist. With a loud explosion of energy, Night Sorrow's body was sent flying. His chest was cut open by the sputtering sword chi, but the wound was instantly repaired by the energy in his body. Being injured made Night Sorrow angry. He no longer tried to escape and instead rushed forward, using his space splitter spear to display his space splitter spear to meet Gong Yanglia's sword. With a crisp sound, Night Sorrow was pushed back, but Gong Yanglai was also pushed back by Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow's power of Desolates and Desolate's law had accelerated the depletion of Gong Yanglia's sword chi, so he had to bear 70% of the energy. After being blasted back by Yi Chang, Gong Yanglai was stunned for a moment. While he was still in a daze, Yi Chang rushed up again and used Void Extreme Kill once more. Since he couldn't run away, he might as well fight. At this time, Night Sorrow's supreme attribute and high attribute's power were displayed. He was always able to destroy a portion of Gong Yanglia's attack before facing it head-on. In addition, Night Sorrow's body was tyrannical. Even if his dantian and internal organs were shaken, he could still quickly attack. Gong Yanglai was puzzled. He had never seen such a ferocious Saint King cultivator like Night Sorrow. The continuous clashes caused Night Sorrow's chi to become unstable and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The meridians in his arms were also damaged. However, Gong Yanglai was also not in a good condition. His hands were trembling and his face was pale. The main reason was that Night Sorrow's offensive power was too strong. His strength was suppressed by Night Sorrow's law and he could only use 70% of his power. He was unable to block Night Sorrow's path. Gong Yanglai was blasted away, opening up a path for Night Sorrow to leave. Night Sorrow flashed and fled. At this time, a yellow light with gravity suppression fell on Night Sorrow's body. An armored man appeared out of thin air and attacked Night Sorrow with his blade. 2 King Realm cultivators have come to my 2 Polarity City to kill this king, right? A wave of water appeared and wrapped Night Sorrow to dodge the armored man's blade. Yen Tianpo appeared and directly used his energy to pull Night Sorrow to his side. This is a wanted criminal of our Tian Nan dynasty. Flame World Lord, please do not interfere, the armored man said. He was the general of Tian Nan dynasty, Yuan Xianba. You need 2 King Realm cultivators to kill a Saint King Realm cultivator? Who are you trying to fool? You think the 2 of you can pose a threat to this king? You think too highly of yourselves. Yen Tianpa narrowed his eyes and sized up the 2. Flame World Lord, your actions will affect the friendship between our 2 sides, Yuan Xianba said. Do we have any relationship? Go back and tell your Emperor Shang Tianfeng that if more sovereign kings from the Tiannan dynasty come to my 2 Polarity City, then I'll also pay a visit to your Tiannan dynasty. My 2 Polarity City has always been safe here, and no power has dared to touch it. If your Tiannan dynasty is so arrogant, then come and try it, said Yen Tianpa coldly. We will definitely kill him, Gong Yanglai said. Trash 2-star King Realm cultivator can't even defeat the soul avatar of a Saint King Realm cultivator. If you are not trash, then what are you? What are you trying to say in front of this king? Scram! Yen Tianpa roared. At the same time, a sparkling longsword appeared in his hand. Let's go, Yuan Xianba pulled the ashen-faced Gong Yanglai and left 2 Polarity City. Night Sorrow, are you alright? Yen Tianpo looked at Night Sorrow and asked. I'm fine. I just received some shock and my meridians are damaged. Night Sorrow said. In fact, his injuries were very serious. Gong Yanglai's sword chi was supported by his sword intent, so its destructive power was extremely strong. 2 Polarity City has my soul crystal, so I would be able to sense it when there was a violent energy fluctuation. Although I arrived a little late, I was still able to make it in time. The guy who appeared later didn't make a move at first, but if he did, you wouldn't have been able to keep your soul avatar, Yen Tianpa said. What's the cultivation of the one who appeared later? Night Sorrow asked. 4-star King Realm cultivator. In fact, they came here to wait for Uncle. I reckon that they also want to investigate Uncle's strength. They don't have good intentions. However, if they want to declare war on me, Uncle can give up on 2 Polarity City, but they will have to pay 10 times or 100 times the price, Yen Tianpa coldly snorted. Speak. Chapter 977. It's still the matter of exchanging hostages that caused them to hate Uncle. I'm the one who brought trouble to Uncle, said Night Sorrow apologetically. You're thinking too much. They were the ones who asked Uncle to arrange the exchange of hostages, and then felt that it was unfair. This is because they have a problem with their conduct. To put it bluntly, they're scum. They even sent 2 King Realm experts to guard us. Uncle didn't want to shed all pretense of cordiality. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to return safely, said Yen Tianpa. Yen Tianpa might not be able to kill both Yuan Xianba and Gongyang Lai, but he could definitely kill one of them. However, he couldn't act according to his temperament. There were still many people from the Wuji realm in the Sky Profound world, and there were still some forces developing in the Sky Profound world. If he directly attacked today, it would be the same as declaring war on the Sky South Empire, and the consequences would be very serious. My strength isn't enough, said Night Sorrow sorrowfully. You're already not bad. No one would believe that you could fight a 2-star King Realm expert to this level. Also, you have to be careful. These people from the Sky South Empire are truly too shameless. 2 King Realm experts killing a Saint King. If this matter were to spread, it would be very embarrassing, but they still did it, said Yen Tianpa. Uncle, then I'll take the teleportation array and leave. Be careful. It's best if your main body doesn't come out from the Wuji realm. The Sky South Empire has at least 3 despicable King Realm experts, said Night Sorrow. Alright, then go. Yen Tianpa nodded. He was looking forward to Night Sorrow's growth. Once there were 2 King Realm experts in the alliance, the situation would change, and they wouldn't be so passive. The 2 Polarity City was rather far from the Heavenly Cauldron City, but the teleportation array was developed. Night Sorrow used a dozen teleportations and returned to the West Radiance Peak from the Heavenly Cauldron Mountain. When Night Sorrow returned to his courtyard, Elder Xiang was sitting and drinking tea. Kid, where did you run off to? You're injured. What happened? Elder Xiang was originally happy to see Night Sorrow, but then he frowned. I'll heal first. I'll tell Elder Xiang later. Night Sorrow had to refine the sword Qi Gongyang Lai left in his body. Elder Xiang nodded and sat aside. He could see that there was something wrong with Night Sorrow's body, and it was not a small problem. After Night Sorrow meditated, he began to force the sword Qi out of his body. At the same time, he began to refine it. Looking at the sword Qi leaking out of Night Sorrow's body, Elder Xiang frowned. He could tell that it was a sword Qi that contained the will of heaven and earth, which meant that the one who injured Night Sorrow was a King Realm cultivator. Original P version, Night Sorrow had spent 6 days meditating to recover. He had used the laws of nothingness and the laws of time to refine the sword Qi and force it out of his body. It had taken him 6 days to do so. One could imagine how powerful the sword Qi, which contained the will of the world, was. Sorry to keep you waiting, Elder Xiang. Night Sorrow changed his tattered robe and said. Which King Realm cultivator attacked you? Elder Xiang asked angrily. An enemy from my hometown. It's nothing. They still haven't killed me. Elder Xiang, don't worry. They don't know I'm at the Tianding Gate, Night Sorrow said. What are you talking about? Since you're a member of the Tianding Gate, then the Tianding Gate will naturally take care of you. Elder Xiang glared at Night Sorrow. Elder Xiang, listen to me. This enmity is too big. I'll deal with it myself. Night Sorrow did not hide anything from Elder Xiang. He directly told him about what had happened between him and the South Sky Dynasty. Shameless. 2 King Realm cultivators attacked you. When you want to fight, just call me, said Elder Xiang. My main body is still comprehending the true meaning of heaven and earth. Once it's effective, my clone can go deal with them. Elder Xiang, don't worry. It's not good to drag the Tianding Gate into this. After all, there are so many disciples in the sect, Night Sorrow said. Letting the Heavenly Cauldron sect fight it out with the Tiannan dynasty isn't good for the sect. However, when do you plan to fight? Sovereign Heavenly Cauldron won't participate, but Elder Xiang can, Elder Xiang said with a smile. Night Sorrow understands. Thank you, Elder Xiang. Night Sorrow cupped his hands towards Elder Xiang. Since your main body is cultivating, your clone should focus on studying auxiliary skills. You've reached a bottleneck in alchemy. You can study formations and forging, said Elder Xiang. I'm going to change my way of thinking. My clone won't study formations, said Night Sorrow after thinking for a moment. Don't be silly. Formations are very important. Even if your cultivation base is not high enough, sometimes you can rely on formations to turn defeat into victory. Elder Xiang glared at Night Sorrow. Elder Xiang, you might not know this, but I have another soul clone. However, due to some reasons, it can't go out. It's cultivating and forging. Transporting materials is troublesome. I'll let that soul clone cultivate in formations while Elder Xiang and I cultivate in forging, explained Night Sorrow with a smile. 2 soul clones? Not bad. Kid, you're really something. Then let's do it. You can cultivate here in peace. Elder Xiang nodded in satisfaction after hearing Night Sorrow's words. Elder Xiang truly liked Night Sorrow and wanted to nurture Night Sorrow into a talent. That was why he didn't hold back. If there was a selfish motive, it would be to nurture another King Realm cultivator for the Tianding Gate. In addition, Elder Xiang was also very shocked by Night Sorrow's combat strength. Even a King Realm cultivator couldn't kill him. It was conceivable that if Night Sorrow was lucky enough to enter the King Realm, he would definitely be able to crush cultivators at the same level. Elder Xiang gave Night Sorrow some formation and forging books for Night Sorrow to use. However, he said that it wasn't that he couldn't teach it to others. If anyone wanted to learn, they could come to the Tianding Gate to join the sect and follow the rules of the Tianding Gate. No matter how much Elder Xiang valued Night Sorrow, the foundation of a sect was its inheritance. Therefore, this couldn't be discounted. Elder Xiang left. He felt that Night Sorrow entering the Tianding Gate was an opportunity for the Tianding Gate. No matter what happened in the future, as long as Night Sorrow didn't die, then the Tianding Gate wouldn't be destroyed. As a disciple of the Tianding Gate, Night Sorrow had a small world. When Night Sorrow became a King Realm cultivator, then the Tianding Gate would have 2 kings. One of them would be the ruler of a world. His original body wouldn't die and his avatar would be able to fight the world. Who wouldn't be afraid? Night Sorrow went out again and gave the formation books to his avatar in the Heaven Sealing Hall. He also gave the spirit comprehension pills to his original body. This meant that his original body and his 2 avatars were both cultivating. It was just that his original body mainly cultivated his combat strength. He still didn't have a clue about comprehending the true intent of the heavenly Tao, but Night Sorrow wasn't anxious. He didn't lack time now. The 9 regions world was stable, so he could slowly cultivate. If 10 years wasn't enough, then 100 years. If 100 years wasn't enough, then 1,000 years. In the profound sky world, King Realm cultivators were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. If it was so easy to appear, then there wouldn't be such a situation. When he was researching equipment refinement, there were also disciples of the West Radiance Peak that came to seek guidance on alchemy. Night Sorrow didn't refuse anyone. As long as they were willing to learn, then he was willing to teach them. Elder Xiang had a broad mind, and so did he, Night Sorrow. Slowly, Night Sorrow's reputation in the West Radiance Peak grew higher and higher, and there were often elders of the Tianding Gate that came to pay their respects. In the past, these elders of the Tianding Gate didn't visit the West Mountain. Firstly, it was because Chu Danxuan's level was low, and secondly, they didn't dare to flatter her. Now, Night Sorrow could do it. He would receive anyone that came. His avatar wasn't in closed-door cultivation. Even if he was refining equipment or pills, when someone came, he could communicate with them after he finished dealing with the matters at hand. Speak. Chapter 978. Elder Xiang often came over to chat and drink tea with Night Sorrow. Only a limited number of people knew about his identity. Only Night Sorrow, Tian Bin, Chu Danxian, and Tang Yuan knew. They wouldn't tell anyone because it would make things very inconvenient for Elder Xiang. Only Chu Danxian and Tang Yuan didn't talk to Night Sorrow. They didn't have the face to come to Night Sorrow's place. Besides, they were also a bit afraid of Night Sorrow. Putting aside Tang Yuan, who was only at the 5th rank, Chu Danxian was a mid-level saint. The gap between her and Night Sorrow, who was a peak saint king, was too great. Yi Shan didn't walk around the West Radiance Peak, let alone the other peaks of the Heavenly Cauldron sect. He often went out to trade for materials. Regardless of whether he was refining pills or refining weapons, he had to deal with a portion of it to trade for materials and support his proficiency in refining weapons. After staying at the Tianding Gate for a year, Night Sorrow's refining skills had risen to the saint tier. In other words, as long as he had the materials, he could refine saint artifacts. However, refining spirit artifacts was still fine. Refining saint artifacts required very high-grade materials. The reason why Yi Shang's artifact forging skills had improved so quickly was mainly because his clone in the Heaven Sealing Grand Hall had also made some achievements in array formations. Forging weapons and defensive artifacts required array formations to increase their offensive and defensive power. Night Sorrow had accumulated a lot of refining materials in the 9 regions world. He would use them to refine tools and then trade them for other materials. This way, he could earn some profit and maintain his proficiency in refining tools. On this day, Elder Xiang brought the Tianding Gates Merit Hall's Elder Wang to Night Sorrow's place. Elder Wang, Night Sorrow can refine mid-level and high-grade saint artifacts. If the sect needs them, you can bring the materials to Night Sorrow to refine them. Night Sorrow, you won't charge a fee, right? Elder Xiang asked Night Sorrow. Naturally. Night Sorrow knew that Elder Xiang was giving him a chance to improve his proficiency in refining tools. Then I'll have to trouble you, Master Knight. Elder Wang cupped his hands towards Night Sorrow. There were not many people in the Tianding Gate who could refine sacred artifacts. Most of the time, they were still cultivating. It was still very difficult for many disciples to obtain sacred artifacts. Elder Wang, please don't say that. Night Sorrow is a disciple of the Tianding Gate. Being able to do something for the Tianding Gate is more than welcome. Besides, this is also helpful to me. Night Sorrow said with a smile. Night Sorrow, you don't have any status in the sect. Let me think about it. Elder Xiang said after thinking for a while. Elder Xiang, you know that there are some things I don't care about, Night Sorrow said. I know you don't care. Well, I'll think about it. You don't have to worry about it, Elder Xiang said. He understood Night Sorrow's indifferent attitude, but he still needed the respect of others. If a peak Saint King didn't obtain respect, then the world would be in chaos, and it would be the fall of the rules. On this day, Night Sorrow was guiding the disciples of the West Radiance Peak in pill refinement when Elder Tian Bin arrived at his small courtyard. Elder Tian is here. Sit, I'll watch him finish refining this cauldron of medicinal pills. Night Sorrow nodded to Tian Bin. Tian Bin cupped his hands towards Night Sorrow before sitting down and waiting. He really admired Night Sorrow. Even if someone was asking for guidance on the refinement of low-grade medicinal pills, Night Sorrow would still guide seriously, and it could be said that he was meticulous. Thank you, Master Knight. After this disciple finished refining the medicinal pills, he bowed to Night Sorrow, and then he left behind a jar of good wine before leaving Night Sorrow's small courtyard. The disciples of the Tianding Gate all knew that Night Sorrow guided others and even helped others refine medicinal pills and weapons for free, so they felt apologetic and would bring some good wine and tea when they came. Elder Tian, tea or wine? Night Sorrow looked at Tian Bin and asked. Wine is fine, Tian Bin said with a smile. Night Sorrow took out 2 wine bowls and opened the wine jar left behind by that disciple, and then he poured a bowl for everyone. Every time I come here, I'm always drinking wine. I'm really ashamed, Tian Bin said with slight embarrassment. Then bring 2 jars of good wine next time, Night Sorrow said. He was very casual with whoever he chatted with now. Hashtag look at the original version. Chapter 1 Inch. I came here this time because I have something to tell Master Knight. The sect master has come out of seclusion, and there's going to be a meeting of elders and protectors tomorrow. Master Knight wants to participate as well. This is Elder Xiang's idea, Tianbin said. Tianbin said. He knew that with Yishang, the sect leader's words were not necessarily effective. However, Yishang would definitely respect Elder Xiang's words. Elder Xiang said that Knight Sorrow will definitely be there on time. Knight Sorrow nodded. It's probably nothing much. Elder Xiang probably wants you to get to know the sect master and the various elders, Tianbin said. After chatting with Knight Sorrow for a while, Tianbin left. Knight Sorrow thought for a while and felt that it would be good to get to know him. After all, he was a disciple of the Tianding Gate and had to live in the Tianding Gate for a long time. After resting for a night, Knight Sorrow changed into a loose moon-white robe. Just as he was about to go out, Chu Danxian came to the small courtyard. Today is a meeting of the sect's higher-ups. I'm here to invite Master Knight, Chu Danxian said. The word master behind the surname was a respectful title for cultivators with attainments in alchemy, equipment refinement, and formations. The members of the Tianding Gate now addressed Knight Sorrow as Master Knight. Alright, there's no need to be reserved. Let bygones be bygones. I'm doing very well in the West Radiance Peak. Knight Sorrow looked at Chu Danxian and spoke. He was also considering Elder Xiang's good intentions towards Chu Danxian, so he didn't want Chu Danxian to be too embarrassed. Chu Danxian nodded. She was very ashamed in her heart because she had gone too far when Knight Sorrow had just entered the sect. When Chu Danxian brought Knight Sorrow into the main hall, everyone in the main hall stood up. During these past few days, these elders had more or less asked Knight Sorrow for help, so they were very respectful to Knight Sorrow. A man in a blue robe who was sitting on the main seat stood up as well. I'm Yan Huifeng. I've been in seclusion for many years and neglected Master Knight. I'm very sorry. Yan Huifeng was the only Peak Saint King before the Tianding Gate. He had always been seeking to break through to the King realm, so he didn't really deal with the sex matters. This time, he came out of seclusion because of Elder Xiang. Gate Master is too polite. Knight Sorrow has been doing very well at the Tianding Gate. All the elders and Elder Xiang have taken good care of Knight Sorrow. Knight Sorrow cupped his hands at Yan Huifeng. Alright, Master Knight, please sit. Yan Huifeng nodded. Come here. Elder Xiang, who was sitting on the first chair on the left, waved at Knight Sorrow. This isn't appropriate, Knight Sorrow said. After all, he was just an ordinary disciple at the Tianding Gate. No problem. Elder Xiang smiled and nodded. Master Knight, please sit. Yan Huifeng nodded at Knight Sorrow again. After thinking for a while, Knight Sorrow sat down beside Elder Xiang. Then, Yan Huifeng asked about the situation at the Tianding Gate in recent years, and some of the elders reported back. Next, we'll discuss Master Knight's problem. Master Knight won the title of Purple Crystal Pill King at the Alchemist Conference. This is the glory of the Tianding Gate. In addition, Master Knight is also a Peak Saint King. I'm sure everyone knows this. Cultivating talents, valuing talents, and respecting talents are the foundation of the Tianding Gate, so if anyone has any opinions, please speak up. Yan Huifeng nodded at Knight Sorrow, and the topic fell on Knight Sorrow. Speak. Chapter 979. Brat, don't say anything. Don't be so useless. Old Xiang looked at Knight Sorrow, who was about to speak, and directly spoke to stop him. Knight Sorrow was startled and didn't say anything. Old Xiang was always looking out for him. The elders in the main hall were all Saint King level elders. Their intention was for Yishang to enter the elder pavilion and become an elder as well. Teacher Knight's situation is the same as mine. Even if it's just a clone, it's probably focused on alchemy, formations, and refining. As an elder, it wouldn't have the time to manage things. We can't delay Teacher Knight's progress. What I mean is for Teacher Knight to be the Tianding Gate's protector elder, said Yan Huifeng. Hearing Yan Huifeng's words, the elders were startled for a moment before nodding. Peak Saint Kings really did have many things to do. After the sect meeting ended, Old Xiang stood up. Teacher Knight has only been at the Tianding Gate for a short time, but his alchemy, forging, and formation skills are all very strong. The main thing is that he has his own understanding and isn't troubled by some of our Tianding Gate's old problems. You can also ask him for advice. Does Teacher Knight have a problem? No problem. Just go to my place and take the good wine and tea. Night Sorrow smiled. Everyone in the hall cupped their hands towards Night Sorrow. They knew that Night Sorrow was just joking. What's the value of wine and tea? Tell me, how's your main body? Asked Old Xiang. I've had some comprehension recently and have entered seclusion. Oh right, Old Xiang, do you know where I can display the time-attributed will of heaven and earth? Night Sorrow asked. He knew that as a king-level expert, Old Xiang was very knowledgeable. Don't bite off more than you can chew. If you want to control the time-attributed will of heaven and earth, you'll need to restrain him in terms of attributes. He's a fire attribute, while Yen Tianpa is a water attribute. Speak. Chapter 980. Shang Tianfeng was a 5-star king, and Yen Tianpa was a 5-star king. Shang Tianfeng comprehended the mystic fire true intent, while Yen Tianpa comprehended the black water true intent. Their attributes were suppressed, so Shang Tianfeng could only swallow his anger. Even if he brought Yuan Qianba and Gong Yang Lai with him, it would be useless. Gong Yang Lai was a 2-star saint, and he couldn't help much. Emperor, that Yen Tianpa is too arrogant. Can we join forces with others to kill him? At most, we'll take a portion of the Wuji world and 9 regions world, Yuan Qianba said. If we want to kill him with a 100% chance, we'll have to invite a high-grade king. We can't afford the price of a high-grade king, and we don't have a 100% chance of killing a mid-grade king. If we can't kill him, the consequences will be severe, Shang Tianfeng said. If the old emperor returns from his travels, all these won't be a problem, Yuan Qianba said after thinking for a while. Glancing at Yuan Qianba, Shang Tianfeng left the Sky South Palace. Actually, Yuan Qianba regretted it after saying that. The old emperor's departure was a stain on Shang Tianfeng's reputation, a flaw in his character. Tens of thousands of years ago, the Sky South dynasty's emperor was Shang Xi. In order to pursue a higher realm, he didn't care about worldly affairs. He wasn't even in the Sky South dynasty. The Sky South dynasty's affairs were managed by Crown Prince Shang Tianfeng and Princess Shang Tianfei. Later, Shang Tianfeng started a war and eliminated his sister's family, as well as his brother-in-law's family. Shang Xi, who had rushed back after learning of her daughter's death, slapped Shang Tianfeng and left the Tiannan Empire, never to appear again. 20,000 years later, Shang Tianfeng followed the rules of the empire and became the emperor of the Tiannan Empire after the emperor's absence for 20,000 years. This wasn't a secret in the Sky South dynasty, but no one mentioned it. Today, he was slapped in the face, and Yuan Qianba said it with emotion. After Night Sorrow arrived at the Sky South dynasty's White Dragon City, he walked around the city and used his soul power to investigate. After discovering that there was only one high-grade Saint King and 2 Saint Kings in the city, he decided to take action. After returning to the teleportation formation and taking the teleportation crystal, Night Sorrow killed his way to the city lord's residence. Yi Shang did not hide his cultivation. When he arrived at the city lord's mansion, the 3 saint rulers came out. Lord, this isn't a place. This isn't a place. This isn't a place. City Lord. Crown Prince Tang was sky. Was Crown Prince's territory? Was Crown Prince? Usually, Crown Prince wasn't here. Whether or not I can behave atrociously isn't something you can decide. Use your strength to speak. After Yi Shan finished speaking, he waved his space-splitting spear and charged at them. Chapter. There was a difference in cultivation and attributes. Coupled with Yishang's powerful body, the three saint rulers could not stop Yishang's slaughter. It only took a moment for Yishang to kill them all. One high-grade Saint King and two mid-grade Saint Kings fell in front of Night Sorrow. After collecting their weapons, storage rings, and saint crystals, Night Sorrow entered the city lord's residence. His soul power found the city lord's warehouse, and after a frenzied sweep, he flew back to the teleportation formation. Night Sorrow didn't know which teleportation crystal was for his next target, Sky Flame City. He casually placed a teleportation crystal, set up a spirit explosion array, and started the teleportation. The spirit explosion array would explode after Night Sorrow left, blowing up the teleportation formation. Night Sorrow did this to prevent the other party from reporting. After 2 teleportations, Night Sorrow arrived at Sky Flame City. He repeated his old plan and killed 2 more Saint Kings. After taking their personal resources and the city lord's resources, he went to the next city. Night Sorrow robbed 1 more city than his original target before quietly leaving and returning to the Tianding Gate. The Tianding Gate was very quiet. After Night Sorrow returned, he went to his courtyard to sort out his harvest. When Night Sorrow finished sorting out the last storage ring, Old Xiang came. Your killing intent and battle intent are very strong. You fought before, Old Xiang said to Night Sorrow. He felt that Night Sorrow's aura was different from before. I've fought a few battles. Recently, I've been running low on materials. So, I went to the South Sky Dynasty and swept through 4 cities. I stole some resources from their city lord's mansion. These can support my cultivation and artifact forging, Yishan said. You're too bold. The Sky South Dynasty is probably in a mess right now. Damn it, a Saint King actually dares to provoke our Sky South Dynasty. He really doesn't want to live anymore. Yuan Qinba's face was full of anger. He will return to the 9 regions world, so entering the 2 extremes city of the Wuji world is a place he must pass through. Sovereign kings are not allowed to go. General Yuan, send a few peak stage Saint Kings from the Fierce Wind Army over. Since he has shown himself, kill him at all costs, Shang Tianfeng, who was sitting in the main guard, ordered. I understand. Yuan Qinba nodded. Send people to put up a portrait of him in our Sky South Dynasty. Raise our vigilance, and put out a large bounty for him. Shang Tianfeng made a series of arrangements. The news of the Sky South Dynasty putting out a bounty for a peak Saint King spread. Some people clapped their hands in joy, feeling that Night Sorrow had done well. He was not afraid of power. Some people planned to look for Night Sorrow and get a reward. All cultivators were lacking resources, especially some independent cultivators. Doing some bounty missions was their source of resources. Speak. Chapter 981. In the profound heaven world, there were very few king realm cultivators, but there were many peak Saint Kings. However, Night Sorrow was one of the more famous ones. He had massacred 4 cities of the Tiannan Empire. This was not something an ordinary person would dare to do. If he was targeted by the Tiannan Empire, he would have to hide for the rest of his life. Once he did, he would be killed by the king of the Tiannan Empire. Night Sorrow had been refining pills for half a month when Elder Xiang returned. He had a serious expression. They have issued a bounty on you, so the problem is more serious. After all, there are many people in the Tianding Gate who know about you. I can guarantee that most people will not leak the secret. However, if there is someone who is blinded by greed, you will be exposed, Elder Xiang said. Night Sorrow stood up and said, I didn't consider it thoroughly. This way, when I leave the Tianding Gate, they can just say that I'm not here and there won't be any problems. Shang Tianfeng must have the courage to come to the gate. Elder Xiang waved his hand to stop Night Sorrow. But this will affect the Tianding Gate. Night Sorrow said. Elder Xiang thought for a moment and said, No, I will deal with this. Besides, the Tianding Gate is too peaceful. It's good to be a little nervous. We have to be vigilant in times of peace. If it continues to be peaceful, it will not be good for the sect. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and nodded. The situation is critical. Elder Xiang, you have to tell me. I have my principles. Elder Xiang nodded and left. Night Sorrow continued to refine pills. What Night Sorrow didn't know was that Elder Xiang had returned to his original appearance after leaving the West Radiance Peak. Then, he called for a sect meeting. He didn't tell Night Sorrow about this. King. In the Tianding Gates Hall, everyone who saw Elder Xiang's true appearance bowed. At this moment, he was not Elder Xiang. He was the Tianding King. Sect Master, the Tianding Gate will be preparing for battle. Elder Xiang gave an order to Yan Huifeng. Yes, do we need to gather the disciples outside? Yan Huifeng asked. No need. Elder Xiang shook his head. King, what happened? Is the sect going to enter a defensive or offensive state? Tianbin asked. As for what happened, there's no harm in telling you. It's Teacher Yi who challenged 4 cities of the Tiannan Empire and killed some of their Saint Kings. He's now wanted by the Tiannan Empire. Don't say that he's the one who caused the trouble, because the enmity between Teacher Yi and the Tiannan Empire is too great. Teacher Yi didn't want to get involved with the Tianding Gate, so I asked him to stay, said Elder Xiang. Then Mr. Xiang told him about Night Sorrow's situation. Sovereign King, you don't need to explain. Master Yi is from the Heavenly Cauldron sect. Let's not talk about how we can't fight for him. However, if anyone comes knocking on our door, we must stand together against them, Yan Huifeng said. Originally, Teacher Yi wanted to leave the Tianding Gate. He didn't want the Tianding Gate to get involved in this mess. But our Tianding Gate hasn't experienced any storms for many years, and our unity has declined. We need this kind of situation to stimulate us, said Elder Xiang. Teacher Yi is really fierce. He's such a peaceful person, but he challenged 4 cities of the Tiannan Empire. How domineering, said Tianbin as he waved his arm. Original V, then that's it. Don't tell Teacher Yi about this for now. Just prepare for battle in secret, said Elder Xiang. In fact, there would always be brave men with great rewards. The South Sky Dynasty still received news that there was a member of the Heavenly Cauldron sect called Night Sorrow. In the Tiannan Palace, Shang Tianfeng sat in the main seat, bathed in the light of the fire. Shang Jingchun, who was in charge of the scouting operation, told him about the situation with Night Sorrow. Heavenly Cauldron sect. He actually joined the Heavenly Cauldron sect. This matter won't be easy to handle, Shang Tianfeng mumbled softly. Emperor, if the Tianding Gate's Night Sorrow is the 9 regions world's Night Sorrow, then the Tianding Gate is in the wrong. We can definitely go and ask for him, said Yuan Shenba. Do you think the Tianding Gate will hand him over? Even if they're in the wrong, they'll lose face if they hand him over. That Xiang Tianding won't compromise, said Shang Tianfeng. Then we'll just endure it, said Gong Yanglai angrily. Among the holy kings that Night Sorrow had killed, 2 of them were members of the Gongyang family. The Gongyang family had suffered a great loss. General Yuan, go to the Tianding Gate and negotiate with them. We're willing to pay a great price. After thinking about it, Shang Tianfeng made his decision. The Tiannan Empire was very powerful, but the Tianding Gate was also a power with a long history. The Tianding King's heaven-bearing cauldron was a stabilizing force. It wasn't something that any power could easily provoke. When Yuan Shenba arrived at the foot of the Tianding Gate mountain, Elder Xiang appeared. Lord King, why have you graced my Tianding Gate with your presence? I am Yuan Shenba from the Tiannan Empire. I've come to pay a visit to the Tianding King on the orders of my ruler. Yuan Shenba's posture was very low because he felt a powerful pressure. Then let's talk in the main hall. Elder Xiang nodded. He couldn't refuse someone who had come to pay a visit. In the main hall, Yuan Shenba said a few polite words before speaking his purpose. How can I say that for no reason? Someone from the Tiannan Empire has come to pay a visit. Go back and tell your ruler that coming to the Tianding Gate is impossible. Even if Night Sorrow did something, that's between you. The Tianding Gate's face isn't something that just anyone can slap. Elder Xiang directly expressed his attitude. It could be said that he didn't give Yuan Xinba any face. The Tiannan Empire is willing to pay a price. Yuan Xinba stood up. Gate Master, see the guest out. Elder Xiang directly waved his sleeve. Tianding King, you have to understand that the Tianding Gate's disciples attacked my Tiannan Empire's 4 cities. We can't just let this matter pass. If you insist, it won't be good for the Tianding Gate, said Yuan Xinba. You came to scare me? I want to see how it won't be good for me. Elder Xiang sneered. Yuan Xinba looked at the Tianding King and then left the main hall. He was helpless about this result. He didn't dare say anything more excessive. If he angered Elder Xiang, he wouldn't have a good ending. Do you really think the Tiannan Empire is the overlord of the profound heaven world? Elder Xiang waved his sleeve and left the main hall. Night Sorrow was still refining pills. He didn't know what was going on outside. When Elder Xiang arrived, Night Sorrow had just finished refining a cauldron of spirit comprehension pills. Clapping his hands, Night Sorrow brewed a pot of tea. Elder Xiang, you're a bit angry. Who made you unhappy? No, it's just a bastard who disgusted me. Elder Xiang smiled. Night Sorrow and Elder Xiang drank tea and chatted. Night Sorrow's refining was very smooth. He didn't need to ask anything. What cultivation technique are you cultivating? If you have time, you can take a look at the Tianding Gate's sacred cauldron scripture. Speak. Chapter 982. Elder Xiang, what are you talking about? Night Sorrow was shocked. I don't know what scripture you are cultivating, but you can compare it with the scripture of the Heavenly Cauldron sect. You can gain more insights from your current foundation and increase your combat strength, Old Xiang said to Yishang. Not that. Elder Xiang, what scripture are you talking about? Night Sorrow asked again. What's wrong with the Holy Cauldron scripture? Elder Xiang looked at Night Sorrow in surprise. He didn't understand why Night Sorrow was so excited. My sect scripture is the Holy Cauldron scripture, Night Sorrow said. Tell me, is it the same? Elder Xiang was also shocked. Night Sorrow recited the first part of the Holy Cauldron scripture. Then Elder Xiang recited the second part. What's going on? I created the Holy Cauldron scripture. How can you know if you haven't seen it? Elder Xiang looked at Night Sorrow in shock. How can Elder Xiang's scripture be passed down in the 9-domain world? Night Sorrow was also very puzzled. This meant that the Medicine Valley and the Tianding Gate had a connection. How many years has the Medicine Valley's sect in the 9-domain world been passed down for? Elder Xiang asked. It's less than 10,000 years old. I don't know if it's not recorded, Night Sorrow said. Could it be that one of the disciples of the Tianding Gate went to the 9-domain world and created the gate? Elder Xiang said. The two of them then discussed and felt that it was very likely that one of the disciples of the Tianding Gate went to the 9-domain world and created the sect. Elder Xiang, what level can the Tianding Gate's Holy Cauldron scripture reach? Night Sorrow asked after explaining the situation of the Medicine Valley's Holy Cauldron scripture. King, the level of the Medicine Valley is a bit low. How about this? I'll go to the 9-domain world with you and see the records of the Medicine Valley. If there's a connection, the Tianding Gate can help the Medicine Valley develop, Elder Xiang said after thinking for a moment. RZ original initial K initial J Night Sorrow nodded. He also agreed with this idea. It could be said that the Medicine Valley was a branch of the Tianding Gate. As for whether the Medicine Valley was willing to recognize the Tianding Gate, it depended on the decision of the higher-ups of the Medicine Valley. Old Xiang went to the Heavenly Cauldron Palace and told Yan Huifeng that he was going to visit the 9 regions world. Yan Huifeng was also very interested, and he wanted to go to the 9 regions world with him. Thus, the three of them set off for the Nine Domains world. The Sky South Empire's men who wanted to kill Night Sorrow were in the Two Extreme City, but with Elder Xiang, whose cultivation base could not be seen through, they did not dare to make a move. Night Sorrow and Elder Xiang arrived at the Two Extreme City. The Yanwu Absolute notified Yen Tianpa. After all, the king's crossing of the border was a big matter. Yen Tianpa soon arrived at Two Extreme City. Rare guest, Yen Tianpa greets you. Yen Tianpa laughed and cupped his fists towards Elder Xiang. Flame World Lord is too polite. This seat intends to visit Night Sorrow's world, so I would like to disturb the Flame World Lord. Elder Xiang said. Absolute, you idiot. I already said that Night Sorrow is this seat's nephew, and the people he brought are all guests. Why do you still need to notify him? Yen Tianpa scolded Absolute before bringing Night Sorrow and the rest to Limitless City. Yen Tianpa and Lin Ruoxu warmly received Night Sorrow, Elder Xiang and Yen Huifeng. After which, Night Sorrow brought Elder Xiang and Yen Huifeng to the city in the sky. After exiting the city in the sky's teleportation array, Elder Xiang looked at Night Sorrow and said in astonishment, "Virtuous body. You have a virtuous body in the Nine Regions world." Yes, I might have some virtuous body in the Nine Regions world. Night Sorrow nodded. Night Sorrow's return was a joyous occasion. Night Sorrow knew that Elder Xiang and Yen Huifeng didn't like crowds, so he brought his wife to greet them before letting them stay for the time being. After spending 2 days with his family, Night Sorrow brought Elder Xiang, Yen Huifeng, his 3 wives and Xueshi to the Medicine Valley. Night Sorrow brought them directly to the Pill Cauldron main hall. After which, he nodded towards Chu Ling Shao who was on duty and asked him to call all the higher-ups of the Medicine Valley over. After the Great Elder, Hua Yunpeng, Yu Yangyu and the rest arrived, Night Sorrow introduced Elder Xiang and Yen Huifeng to everyone. He also told them about the Holy Cauldron scripture. After listening to Night Sorrow's introduction, Hua Yunpeng and the rest were shocked. Once it was confirmed that the Medicine Valley's inheritance came from the Tianding Gate, it would be a big deal. Don't be nervous. I won't force you to do anything. I just heard that the Holy Cauldron scripture was passed down in the Nine Regions world, so I came to take a look. Also, here is a list of all the names of our disciples in the past 20,000 years. You can check if your founder is among them, Elder Xiang said. Many of the ancient records of our Medicine Valley have disappeared, but the names of the alchemy ancestor and the founder of the sect still exist. The alchemy ancestor is Xiang Jun, and the founder of the sect is Master Yao Qin, the Great Elder said. Yao Qin. It's Yao Qin. Yen Huifeng stood up in surprise. What's wrong? Sect Master, you know Yao Qin? Elder Xiang asked Yen Huifeng. I know him. He joined the sect at the same time as I did. He wasn't very focused on cultivation, but he had a special interest in alchemy. That was 20,000 years ago. He went out to collect herbs and never appeared again. I investigated his disappearance and found that he went to the Tiannan dynasty to collect the Cloud Spirit fruit. At that time, we were only elite disciples. The Holy Cauldron scripture could only help us reach the saint level. Yen Huifeng flipped through the list as he spoke. Because there was a specific number of years, it didn't take him long to find the record of Yao Qin. Yen Huifeng took the list and showed it to everyone. My surname is Xiang. It seems that there is no mistake. How about this? Don't feel pressured. If you need any help, the Tianding Gate will support you. You can also continue to cultivate at the Tianding Gate. The inheritance will be passed down to you, Elder Xiang said. Although it was confirmed that the Medicine Valley was a branch of the Tianding Gate, Elder Xiang didn't want to force the Medicine Valley to acknowledge their ancestors. After all, the Medicine Valley was already an independent sect. Although Elder Xiang thought so, the first rule of the Medicine Valley's inheritance was to respect one's teachers. Since Yu Yangyu and the others knew where the inheritance came from, they naturally wouldn't deny it. Everyone bowed to Elder Xiang and respectfully called him Ancestral Master. Very well. Night Sorrow, if you hadn't entered the Tianxian world, the Tianding Gate wouldn't have known that they had lost an inheritance. Now is a good thing. As for what the Medicine Valley plans to do next, the Tianding Gate will fully support it. Sect Master will communicate with everyone. Night Sorrow, accompany me to walk around. Today is really a good day, Elder Xiang said with a smile. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew some things. Yan Huifeng, Yu Yangyu, and the others would communicate well. Night Sorrow brought Elder Xiang to the Supreme River Space, the Underworld, and the Profound Mysteries realm. With him, Elder Xiang could naturally enter and exit the 9 domains world. The 3 domains are very peaceful. You have governed them well. No wonder you have so much power of virtue, Elder Xiang said to Night Sorrow as he looked at him. I just want the people around me, I want everyone to live a better life. Night Sorrow really didn't deliberately seek power of virtue. You don't understand. Power of virtue is hard to find, even in the Tianxian world. If you have some merit in the Tianxian world, then your body of virtue will be triggered and the Tianxian world will recognize you, Elder Xiang said. Speak. Chapter 983. Let nature take its course. I don't know how to proceed either, Night Sorrow said with a nod. Sometimes, letting nature take its course is the closest to the way of heaven, Elder Xiang said with a smile. When Night Sorrow brought Elder Xiang to Sky City, he found that Yan Huifeng and Medicine Valley's higher-ups were all in Sky City. Master, why is everyone here? Night Sorrow asked in surprise. Night Sorrow, we've discussed it. Medicine Valley's heritage is at the Tianding Gate, so it's natural for them to acknowledge their ancestors. Sect Master Yen said it's up to you, Yu Yangyu said. Don't look at me. I can't handle these things well. It's up to everyone to decide. Night Sorrow really wasn't good at handling these things. King, what do you think? Yan Huifeng looked at Elder Xiang. You're pushing everything to me. Their heritage is mine, just like the Tianding Gate. It's up to you to arrange it, Elder Xiang glared at Yan Huifeng and said. Elder Lu, let's set up a peak at the Tianding Gate called Danding Peak. Medicine Valley will develop there. The resources and treatment that the Tianding Gate gave to other peaks will also be given to Medicine Valley. We'll also pass on our heritage to them, Yan Huifeng said. Thank you, Sect Master. Thank you, Sect Master. Yu Yangyu and the others bowed to Elder Xiang and Yan Huifeng. Night Sorrow was happy to see this result. It was a new chapter for Medicine Valley. The Medicine Valley of the 9 Realms world can't be neglected. After all, Medicine Valley is a heritage for the 9 Realms world. It can give many young people and children opportunities, Night Sorrow said. Night Sorrow, don't worry. We won't do that, the Great Elder said. After sending Elder Xiang, Yan Huifeng, and the people of Medicine Valley off, Night Sorrow stayed with his family. He and his wives went for a walk in the Sacred Hall. Night Sorrow also needed to rest. His main body also felt the clone's relaxation. In addition, Night Sorrow's clone was no different from his main body, except that he couldn't do some things with his wives. In addition, everyone's cultivation had improved greatly in the past few years when Night Sorrow left. After resting for half a year in the 9 Realms world, Yu Yangyu told Night Sorrow that the Medicine Valley had officially established itself at the Tianding Gate. Night Sorrow ended his rest and took his 3 wives and Xueshi to Wuji City through the teleportation array. Yen Tianpa was afraid that Night Sorrow and the others would be intercepted, so he sent Night Sorrow and the others into the teleportation array. In fact, everyone knew that the Tiannan dynasty had arranged people in Two Poles City. They were no match for King's cultivators. Night Sorrow wasn't afraid either. Yen Tianpa naturally didn't want Night Sorrow to be in danger, so he just sent him off. Tianding Gate. Danding Peak was the name of the West Jade Peak, which was very close to the West Radiance Peak. Yu Yangyu and the others had even specially built a courtyard for Night Sorrow at a place with a bamboo forest. The layout was similar to Night Sorrow's bamboo forest peak in the Medicine Valley, and it was called the Bamboo Grove Courtyard. Night Sorrow arrived at the West Radiance Peak and apologized to Chu Danxian and the others because he would be staying at the Bamboo Grove Courtyard on Danding Peak in the future. The members of the West Radiance Peak were very reluctant to see Night Sorrow leave. Night Sorrow had helped them a lot in the past few years, and it could be said that Night Sorrow had a good relationship and reputation on the West Radiance Peak. Night Sorrow smiled as he looked at the group of people that were sending him off. "I'm not leaving the Tianding Gate. Do all of you see Danding Peak on the opposite side? There's a Bamboo Grove Courtyard there. I'll be staying there in the future, and all of you can look for me at any time." The disciples of the West Radiance Peak were at ease when they heard Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow's heart was at ease when he arrived at the Bamboo Grove Courtyard. It was a special kind of comfort. With his 3 wives and Xueshi by his side, Night Sorrow wasn't living alone anymore. "Night Sorrow, you can actually bring the Spacetime Pagoda over and let the members of the God-slaying squad cultivate while going out to train. They need to broaden their horizons as well," said Yang Lei. "That's good too. Now that the 9 regions world is stable, I can bring some people to the Tianding Gate. It's safe here, and they can cultivate here." Night Sorrow thought for a moment and felt that it was indeed feasible. Night Sorrow then returned to the 9 regions world and brought his parents, sister, the members of the God-slaying squad, Wu Lingfei, and Zhu Jiuyan to the Tianding Gate's Danding Peak. When Night Sorrow returned to the 9 regions world, the Sky South Empire's troops guarding 2 Extremes City had already retreated. They didn't have the chance to make a move the previous few times, but they knew that Night Sorrow was vigilant and went back to report it. Night Sorrow refined pills and refined artifacts every day. The disciples of the Tianding Gate came to ask for pointers or help with refining pills and artifacts, and Night Sorrow didn't refuse any of them. Elder Xiang also frequently came to Night Sorrow's place to chat and drink tea with Night Sorrow and talk about the current situation in the Sky Profound world. Elder Xiang couldn't help Night Sorrow's main body with his cultivation. Not only could Elder Xiang not help, no one could help. He needed to comprehend on his own. If he didn't comprehend, he could only be stuck here forever. There were many peak saints in the Sky Profound world, and there were even some Daos. He needs time. He's still young, and it's not rational for him to fight with the other party like this. Yan Huifeng was also worried about Night Sorrow's safety. "Speak." Chapter 984. While Night Sorrow was drinking tea, Elder Xiang came to his courtyard. "Elder Xiang, you're here. I made some good tea this time," Yi Shang greeted him. "You're a picky eater. If you can say it's good tea, then you have to try it," said Elder Xiang as he sat down. "Heart-cleansing tea. It can wash away the dust in a person's heart. I got it in the 9 Realms world, but I usually don't drink it. I only drank it after I started killing." Night Sorrow poured Elder Xiang a cup of tea. Elder Xiang took a sip and closed his eyes. "Good tea. It's really good for the soul." After drinking a pot of tea, Elder Xiang told him why he had come. He didn't want Night Sorrow to go to the Tiannan dynasty again. After all, it was too dangerous. "I think they'll restrain themselves. Elder Xiang, you don't have to worry. I'm only fighting with my clone. I don't think they can afford it," said Night Sorrow. "You don't have to worry too much. The Tianding Gate isn't made of paper. If they want to fight with the Tianding Gate, then let them. It's not like the disciples of the Tianding Gate can't fight. They also need to go through some hardships," said Elder Xiang. "I understand what Elder Xiang means. What I want to tell Elder Xiang is that my fellow disciples in the Heavenly Cauldron sect are all my brothers. Perhaps some of them have never interacted with me before, but our brotherhood still exists. I don't want to see others die because of the trouble I caused. When you need me to fight, I will stand at the very front." Yi Shan expressed his attitude. "All right. If you need to fight, I'll come find you." Elder Xiang was very pleased that Yi Shang had such an attitude. A sect or a force needed people like Yi Shang, who had the determination and perseverance to fight for the sect to the end. After Elder Xiang left, Wu Lingfei, Xue Shi, and the others came to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow smiled and told them why Elder Xiang had come. This is the spirit of a top sect. They can protect their disciples, said Yang Lei. 6th Senior Sister, 9th Senior Sister, First Feather, how is your comprehension of the laws going? Night Sorrow asked. Afterward, the 3 women told Night Sorrow that their comprehension of the laws was more or less complete. They would be able to make a breakthrough later. This made Night Sorrow feel very relieved, because after entering the saint level, his 3 wives did not need to worry about their lifespans. Don't be hasty. Take your time. We're not in a hurry. You guys have plenty of time, Night Sorrow said with a smile. Over the next few days, Night Sorrow continued to refine defensive equipment. He planned to fully equip his wife, Wu Lingfei, and the others. A few days later, Night Sorrow finished the task. This was the efficiency of a saint-level tool refiner. However, it was much more difficult to refine a saint-level tool refiner. Now, Night Sorrow still lacked some auxiliary materials. On this day, just as he was cultivating the heavenly wasteland killing spear, Old Xiang came. While Night Sorrow was brewing tea, Old Xiang looked at Night Sorrow and said, "You know about the longevity limitless pill, right?" "I know. It's a peak Saint King medicinal pill. It's on the same level as the spirit comprehension pill, but the main ingredient, the longevity limitless fruit, is very hard to find. It's almost never seen the market," said Night Sorrow. The longevity limitless pill's value was terrifying. No other medicinal pill could compare to it. It could not increase one's cultivation base or comprehension ability, but it could increase one's lifespan. In other words, even if a person had never cultivated before, after eating it, they would have a lifespan of 10,000 years. It could also solve some of the body's hidden problems, such as innate or acquired disabilities. Recently, the limitless territory has appeared. The most precious treasure there is the longevity limitless fruit. Think about it. If you want stability, don't go. If you think it's worth it, go take a look. A single longevity limitless pill can be sold for an astronomical price at an auction house. It can be exchanged for countless spirit stones and resources. It'll be very helpful to your growth, said Old Xiang. I'll definitely go. In truth, Night Sorrow had long since thought about the longevity limitless pill. It was just that the main ingredient, the longevity limitless fruit, was a legendary ingredient, so he couldn't get his hands on it. Night Sorrow had learned about the longevity limitless pill because Old Gu's father needed it. The longevity limitless pill could replenish 10,000 years of lifespan, so Night Sorrow didn't have to worry about Old Gu's lifespan. In addition, his severed arm could be regrown, so he didn't need to enter the saint realm. Heaven-defying treasures had the ability to change laws. This is an introduction to the limitless territory. It's quite detailed. Take a look. Old Xiang gave Night Sorrow a map and a book about the limitless territory. Then he left Night Sorrow's little house in the bamboo forest. As he studied it, Night Sorrow understood what the limitless territory was like. First appearance. Every time the limitless territory appeared, it would appear at the intersection of the heaven mystic world and the firmament world. It would appear once every 90,000 years. Every time it appeared, it would be accompanied by a storm of blood. This was because everyone needed the longevity limitless fruit. Furthermore, there were many treasures in the limitless territory. It was a place to seek opportunities. There was only a 1-year limit. With the attraction of the heaven mystic world and the firmament world, it would stay between the two worlds for a year. It could even be said that King Realm cultivators wanted to enter, but they couldn't. The limitless territory was a special space. Once a King Realm cultivator entered, the space would collapse. Thus, even if a King Realm cultivator wanted to enter, they could only wander around the spatial turbulence outside. It was impossible for them to enter. Even if a King Realm cultivator didn't enter, it wouldn't be safe. This was because there were people entering from every world. Thus, Night Sorrow was still cautious. Furthermore, there were king realm beasts in the limitless territory. It wasn't strange for them to kill a peak saint king. While Night Sorrow was studying the map of the limitless territory, Night Sorrow's 3 wives came over. Looking at the map and books in front of Night Sorrow, they picked them up and took a look. The limitless territory is very mysterious. It can actually produce the longevity limitless fruit, Yang Lei said in surprise after taking a look. Night Sorrow, are you going to the limitless territory? Aoi asked. She was meticulous and wasn't as careless as Yang Lei. Yes, the limitless territory will open soon. I plan to go and take a look. In the heaven mystic world, we don't have much accumulation. Resources are also a problem. As our cultivation increases, we need more resources. The main thing is that the longevity limitless fruit is very important to Father Gu, Night Sorrow said. Sikong Chuyu and the others didn't say anything because this involved Father Gu. Father Gu was the most important person in Night Sorrow's heart. It was useless to persuade him. Night Sorrow would definitely go. What you need to cultivate is your mental state, so don't work too hard. If you want to return to the 9 regions world, just tell me. If I'm not here, you can go back by yourselves. The people of the South Sky Dynasty don't recognize you. They will treat you as people from the limitless territory and won't easily make a move, Night Sorrow said. The girls nodded. They were still worried about Night Sorrow. The dangers of entering the limitless territory weren't just cultivators killing each other. There were also high-level beasts in the limitless territory. The risk was very high. Speak. Chapter 985. Although they were worried, they knew that they couldn't persuade him. They could only remind him. Don't worry. Compared to other Saint Kings, my life-saving ability is still very strong. Not just anyone can kill me. Over the years, many people have wanted to kill me, but no one has succeeded. Night Sorrow said with a smile. Bring the pagoda of time and space. With 2 saint treasures for defense, we can rest assured. Sikong Chuyu said. There's still some time. I'll make some preparations. Night Sorrow said. He planned to refine the sky-piercing spear soon. It was a weapon that had been with him for a long time. It could still be used at a critical moment. After the girls nodded, they made tea and chatted. They didn't mention this topic again. Night Sorrow rested for 2 days and took out the sky-piercing spear to refine. The quality of the sky-piercing spear and the 5-clawed pterosaur tendon was too low. They couldn't withstand a battle at the Saint King level, so Night Sorrow wanted to refine them. With a lot of materials, Night Sorrow didn't have any difficulty refining. Originally, Night Sorrow planned to refine a high-grade saint artifact, but because he was serious about it and used good materials, high-grade saint artifact was not the limit. Then Night Sorrow added 7 wind attribute auxiliary formations to make the sky-piercing spear's penetrating power even stronger. In the end, the sky-piercing spear was refined into a Saint King artifact. Of course, it was only a low-grade Saint King artifact, but it was enough. With the energy of the user, it wouldn't be damaged. Holding the sky-piercing spear, Night Sorrow was very satisfied. The toughness and strength of the 5-clawed pterosaur tendon with the soft silver essence were also very high. You haven't used the sky-piercing spear for a long time, right? Sikong Chuyu said. It's not that I don't use it. I'm afraid of damaging it. That lightning tribulation destroyed some. This is the last one. I have to be careful. Night Sorrow said with a smile. Sikong Chuyu and the others nodded. They all knew that Night Sorrow was a nostalgic person. After refining the weapons, Night Sorrow refined some healing pills for external and internal injuries. He also refined some detoxification pills. Hee, the environment there is terrible. Anything can happen. You can refine some poison to protect yourself. Yang Lei said. Under normal circumstances, only Yang Lei could come up with such an idea. Sikong Chuyu and Aoi would never come up with it. Then, I'll have to find some advanced poison materials. Ordinary poisons won't have any effect, Night Sorrow said after giving the matter some thought. At this moment, Zhu Jiuyan walked over. Night Sorrow, you're a sage-grade weapon forger. Can you upgrade my weapon? This is a spirit-grade crescent blade. It's going to be troublesome if it needs to be protected by the rules during a battle. Zhu Jiuyan wanted to cultivate in the pagoda of time and space, so she followed Yi Zichen to Night Sorrow's place. The main reason was that everything was going well in the Nether Realm. Everything was going well with the 9 domain worlds, so she was not worried. I'm sorry. I just became a Sage King grade weapon forger. Night Sorrow said with a smile. He was very proud at this moment. Then I don't want a Saint grade weapon. I want a Sage King grade weapon. Zhu Jiuyan said after being stunned for a moment. You don't want the materials. Do you want me to refine the weapon with my bare hands? Or do you want me to waste my time and materials? Night Sorrow said. Stingy. My weapon is good. It's all for you to fight. Take these materials. You can decide if it's enough or not. Zhu Jiuyan placed the crescent blade in front of Night Sorrow and took out some materials. You're good. Then what about your clone's weapon? Night Sorrow asked. Zhu Jiuyan sighed and shook her head helplessly. My weapon is already a problem. How can I be in the mood to care about my clone? You're taking advantage of the rich. Just make a saint-grade weapon for your clone. Night Sorrow also felt helpless. Even if Zhu Jiuyan did not have the materials, he still had to refine it. Yi Shang spent 3 days refining weapons for Zhu Jiuyan. He refined a Saint Ruler artifact and 2 scimitars, which were high-grade saint artifacts. I'm a little tired of cultivating here. I'll go out later to consolidate my cultivation. Zhu Jiuyan said as she waved the crescent blade. I'm going out to train as well. The place I'm going to is very dangerous. Are you coming? Night Sorrow asked with a smile. What do you mean? Zhu Jiuyan asked. Yi Shan handed over the map and the introduction to the Void Dominion to Zhu Jiuyan before leaving. He still had a batch of pills and a batch of high-quality saint artifacts on hand. He was going to Big Dipper City to find Old Man Zhang to deal with them. When Night Sorrow arrived at Big Dipper City, Old Zhang naturally received him warmly. He also accepted Night Sorrow's goods at a fair price. He was a member of the Alchemist Union, and Night Sorrow had joined the Alchemist Union before. He could be considered one of them. After accepting the Spirit Stones, Night Sorrow now had over 70 Saint Spirit Stones. It was not a small fortune. Elder Zhang, I'd like to ask if you could help me get some strange poison materials. Yi Shan stated his purpose for coming. Night Sorrow, I know you have enmity with the Southern Sky Dynasty, but poisoning people is against the heavens, Old Zhang said to Night Sorrow. Old Zhang, you're overthinking things. You know about the Endless Weave, right? I'm preparing to enter the Endless Weave. I'm keeping a life-saving measure, Night Sorrow said. That's not a problem. I have some poison materials here. Come with me. Elder Zhang brought Yi Shang into the inner room, then took out a piece of ice from his storage ring. In the middle of the ice was a pale white skull, and there were small white blades of grass growing out of the skull's 7 orifices. This is 7 extinction grass. It attacks the spirit sea of people and creatures. If plant life forms have sentience, they'll be attacked as well. As for how you use it, that's none of my business, Old Zhang said. How many pills are needed for this depends on your goal. I heard you refined a Saint King artifact. Not bad. Both your alchemy and artifact refining skills are at the Saint King grade. That's amazing, Old Xiang's eyes were full of praise. Old Xiang, I have something to ask. Does our Tianding Gate have any ancient books on poison refinement? Night Sorrow asked. What kind of evil tricks do you have in mind? Old Zhang asked. Chapter 986. I've got the 7 extremes grass. I'm planning to make some poison for self-defense. Night Sorrow said. Night Sorrow, poison is a heretical path after all. It can't be considered refined. I don't want you to walk this path either. Give me the materials and I'll refine it for you. Besides, the 7 despair grass is a Tao. It's a competition of fate, not a game. Night Sorrow said. I know my limits. With my strength, I'll be tortured if I don't follow you. I'm just following you to broaden my horizons. Zhu Jiuyun said. Be obedient when you're in. Don't mess around. Night Sorrow reminded Zhu Jiuyun. For the next few days, Night Sorrow accompanied his wife and parents to walk around the Tianding Gate. When Night Sorrow returned to the bamboo grove, he realized that everyone from Medicine Valley was there. Master, Grand Elder, why are you all here? Night Sorrow asked. We're looking for you. Yu Yangyu said. Master, what do you need me to do? Night Sorrow did not understand what Yu Yangyu and the rest were facing. Danding Peak doesn't have a peak master. Master and Grand Elder are just elders in name. Yu Yangyu said. Then Master and Grand Elder Hua, or Grand Elder. He knew Night Sorrow's character. If he were to let Night Sorrow manage the affairs of Danding Peak, he would be making things difficult for Night Sorrow. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. After everyone had decided, before Yu Yangyu and the rest left, Old Xiang arrived. He placed dozens of pill bottles on the table in front of Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow, here are 10 bottles of 7 extremes poison smoke and 1 bottle of antidote. There are 10 antidote pills, just enough. Thank you, Old Xiang. I'll make some tea. Night Sorrow kept the pills and started making tea. You have a lot of people here today, Elder Xiang said as he looked at Yu Yangyu and the others. Patriarch, we have something to discuss. Hua Yunpeng bowed to Old Xiang. Tell me what you need. If I can help, I'll help. If I can't, I'll help, Elder Xiang said. Following which, Hua Yunpeng went on to talk about the changes in personnel at Danding Peak, as well as everyone's arrangements. You're right. Night Sorrow is suitable to be the peak leader. With a few Saint Kings, Danding Peak's strength is not bad. There's also Night Sorrow. Not bad, not bad. Elder Xiang smiled and nodded. He knew that this was because of Night Sorrow's unity. Otherwise, Medicine Valley's level in Tianding Gate was indeed lower. Mr. Xiang had originally wanted to hold a ceremony, but Night Sorrow felt that it was unnecessary. They could just file it at the Tianding Gate. Elder Xiang nodded and went to arrange this. That's it then. Master, if you have any problems, please look for me. I'll take care of it, Night Sorrow said. He also did not want to make things difficult for Yu Yangyu and the others. After the people from Medicine Valley left, Night Sorrow took out a few jars of wine and placed them on the table. Come, I won't say anything else. Just a few jars of wine to thank Auntie Fei, Shueshi, and Jiuyun. Night Sorrow had already prepared everything about going to the No Weave. In addition, he had also found some handwritten letters and information about the No Weave in Tianding City and Big Dipper City. He wanted to compare them and understand more about the No Weave. As he compared them with the handwritten letters, Night Sorrow learned more about the No Weave. It was a world with a radius of tens of millions of miles. It was usually difficult to get close to the No Weave. It appeared because it was close to the firmament world and the mysterious heaven world. Cultivators could enter from the firmament world and the mysterious heaven world. Entering the No Weave, the first danger was competitors. This was because many cultivators entered, and almost all of them were peak Saint Kings. As long as you did not know them, they would be your opponents. Even if you did not remember them, others would still plot against you. The best way was to kill those you did not know. This was the safest way. The No Weave was also very dangerous. It was already confirmed that there were King Realm beings in the No Weave. There were records of the Silver Scorpion King, Flame King, and King Kong King. These were 3 special beings. The Silver Scorpion King was a gifted member of the Silver Scorpion tribe. It had strong defense and poisonous vital energy. It controlled the heavenly poison will and was good at using poison. Saint Kings would not be able to survive if they encountered it. The Flame King was a flame lion. It was also favored by heaven and earth. It had cultivated to the king realm and controlled the dark flame will. Its strength was its attack power and its weakness was its speed. The King Kong King had the King Kong ape. It had great strength and strong defense. When it controlled the earth will, its speed was not its strength. According to the records of the person who left the letter, he had seen the limitless longevity tree. However, with the King Kong King guarding it, he was lucky to survive. However, he could not obtain the limitless longevity fruit. Night Sorrow thought for a moment. He felt that among the three kings, the Silver Scorpion King was the most deadly because it was fast. The Flame King was second. If these two kings took the limitless longevity fruit, he would have no chance at all. The King Kong King had strong defense but speed was its weakness. Night Sorrow had the rules of space and speed was his strength. If he was lucky, he would have a chance. Night Sorrow, are you still researching? Going in depends on luck, Zhu Jiuyun said. I still have to make more preparations. This way, I won't go in blind, Night Sorrow said. Speak. Chapter 987. Look. Alright, I'll go with you anyway. You kill the experts and I'll clean up the lackeys, Zhu Jiuyun said with a smile. Zhu Jiuyun was not a brainless woman, but now that Night Sorrow had done what he needed to do, she did not need to worry. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. The No Weave was getting closer and closer to the Tianxian world. Night Sorrow and Zhu Jiuyun also planned to set off. Worried that Night Sorrow would be ambushed by the people from the Tiannan Empire, Elder Xiang personally accompanied Night Sorrow and Zhu Jiuyun to the entrance of the No Weave. When you feel the spatial barrier ripple, tear open space and pass through the spatial turbulence to reach the No Weave. Remember, you only have 1 year. After a year, the No Weave will leave this region. If you don't return in a year, it will be difficult for you to travel back. Then, you will be trapped for 90,000 years. The lifespan of a Saint King is only 10,000 years. Moreover, it is unrealistic to want to survive for 90,000 years. Elder Xiang reminded Night Sorrow and Zhu Jiuyun. Now, the two of them were members of the Tianxian Gate. One was a peak Saint King, and the other was a high-level Saint King. They were both important members of the sect. A few days ago, Yan Huifeng drank tea with Night Sorrow. He was the leader of the Tianxian Gate. He could not make the decision casually. Otherwise, he would also want to go. After that, people came one after another. They were all peak Saint Kings. There were even more people from the Tiannan Empire. It was a team of 7 Saint Kings. 3 of them were peak Saint Kings. Seeing Night Sorrow, the few of them looked at him angrily because Night Sorrow had slapped them in the face. Night Sorrow's response was a bright smile. Be careful after you go in. It is inevitable that there will be battles, Elder Xiang reminded Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew that after going in, some battles would be unavoidable and unavoidable. 6 days later, the spatial barrier trembled. It was the movement of the No Weave, which caused the spatial turbulence to impact the Tianxian world. Jiuyun, enter my spatial treasure. If there's a chance, we'll leave first, Night Sorrow said. Zhu Jiuyun nodded and did not resist Night Sorrow's soul power. He then entered the space-time pagoda. Now, Night Sorrow had 2 defensive sacred artifacts and the 9-domain origin bead in his spirit sea. Originally, the 9-domain origin bead was in the spirit sea of Night Sorrow's original body. However, his original body was currently cultivating, and the one moving around the heaven profound world was his clone. The one dealing with matters and crises was his clone. Therefore, Night Sorrow transferred the 9-domain origin bead to his clone. Thankfully, the 9 regions origins bead could communicate with Night Sorrow, allowing the space-time pagoda to enter the divine sea. The dragon cauldron was still in Night Sorrow's dantian. 2 days later, Night Sorrow tore the space and felt the strength of the space turbulence. He told Old Xiang that he was going to leave first. After checking the distance, he felt that he could travel through it. Looking at Night Sorrow, Old Xiang nodded. He knew that Night Sorrow would not do something that he was not confident in. Now that he dared to leave first, it meant that he was confident in himself and had the strength to do so. After greeting Elder Xiang, Yi Shan tore through space again and started to travel towards the No Dominion that he'd scouted. The distance was less than 1,500 feet. With Night Sorrow's suppression of the Void Law, the protection of the Time Law, and the cutting of the Space Law, it was not too difficult to travel. After using less than an hour, Night Sorrow arrived at the periphery of the No territory. After using the spatial Ren to break the barrier, Night Sorrow entered the No territory. After scanning the area and feeling that there was no danger, Night Sorrow inserted a soul crystal ball into an inconspicuous place. Then, he flew along the spatial barrier for a while before entering the space-time pagoda. "We're in the No territory?" Zhu Jiuyun asked. "We're here. I've used up quite a bit of energy, so I need to recover first. In a dangerous place like the No territory, I need to be in peak condition at all times. Otherwise, it will be troublesome if I encounter any problems," Night Sorrow said. Zhu Jiuyun nodded. She understood this logic. If he was in peak condition and could not solve any problems, then it was his own problem. He could not blame anyone. However, if he was not in peak condition and got killed, then it was his own problem. 4 hours later, Night Sorrow had recovered to peak condition. He stood up and drank a mouthful of wine. Looking at Zhu Jiuyun, he said, "Then let's go. We won't mix with others. If they want to fight, then fight. It has nothing to do with us." Night Sorrow had come in early to avoid some trouble. There were too many people who wanted to come in, not just from the profound heaven world, but also from other worlds. It was inevitable that they would find each other displeasing to the eye. They would want to form groups or something. He was not interested in that. "Alright, record the coordinates. If we can't find the place when we come out, we'll be in trouble if we get trapped here." Zhu Jiuyun reminded Night Sorrow. "I've placed a soul crystal ball there. It can sense it. I really want to set up a large array. When the people from the South Sky Dynasty come in, we can activate it and kill them directly. However, it will take too much time," Night Sorrow said. "There's no point in fighting with them now. Let's go look for opportunities first. If we can get the 10,000 boundless longevity fruit, then we'll be the biggest winner," Zhu Jiuyun said. "Then let's go." Night Sorrow's soul power wrapped around Zhu Jiuyun and flew out of the space-time treasure pagoda. At the same time, he let the 9 domain sources help him sense if there were any spirit stones or ores. As for the medicinal herbs, he would have to search for them himself. Zhu Jiuyun used his method. His main body stayed with Night Sorrow while his doppelganger was a distance away. This way, he could search a wider area and reap more rewards. "Jiuyun, take a look at this Fey illustration handbook. You won't miss anything this way." Night Sorrow handed his Fey illustration handbook to Zhu Jiuyun and started searching ahead. The last time people from the human world entered the No territory was 90,000 years ago. Now that the resources had recovered to their peak, 90,000 years was enough. Night Sorrow collected materials as he moved forward. There were too many high-grade medicinal herbs. Zhu Jiuyun followed Night Sorrow and studied the Fey illustration handbook. Night Sorrow and Zhu Jiuyun searched for materials as they moved forward. If there were any monster beasts that were causing trouble, Zhu Jiuyun would take care of them. This is a treasure trove of resources. Even if we don't talk about the 10,000 boundless longevity fruit, it's still worth it to come here, Night Sorrow said after collecting a few Saint King grade medicinal herbs. "Yes, the opportunities in the great world are better than those in our small world," Zhu Jiuyun also sighed. "Hee, the risks are relatively higher. There are no Saint Kings in the small world. Here, King Realm cultivators are the big shots, Night Sorrow said with a smile. I found some special herbs. The spirit chi is very rich, but I don't recognize them. Let's go and take a look, Zhu Jiuyan said. Her soul doppelganger had found something good. Under Zhu Jiuyan's lead, Night Sorrow came to the place where Zhu Jiuyan's soul doppelganger found the treasure. Speak. Chapter 9. Chapter 988. What a treasure. This is spiritual root grass, a king-grade material. It can improve one's cultivation aptitude. In the words of alchemists, it can change one's spiritual root. Even a mediocre person can become an excellent seedling for cultivation after eating the Yun spirit pill, Night Sorrow said excitedly. Night Sorrow would not have recognized such a rare herb if he had not come to the Tianding Gate. He had read about it in the alchemy book that old Xiang had given him. There are more than 10 of them. This is a good harvest, Zhu Jiuyan said. He felt a sense of accomplishment. Let's go back. After we deal with them, we will share the resources with you, Night Sorrow said. He was also very happy. This was a great opportunity. No need. You can just let me have a taste of the good pills you refine. I will also change my aptitude, Zhu Jiuyan shook her head. Zhu Jiuyan shook her head. She was not a greedy person. She knew very well that if Yi Shang did not bring her along, she would not even be qualified to enter. If she did not follow Yi Shang, she would be courting death. Okay. I am not a person who treats you badly. I will take care of your cultivation resources in the future, Night Sorrow said as he put away the spiritual root grass. I have already joined the Medicine Valley and followed you. It is not right for you to treat me badly, Zhu Jiuyan said with a smile. Am I a coolie? Night Sorrow said as he put away the spiritual root grass. You should be content, Zhu Jiuyan glared at Night Sorrow. Then, the two continued to move forward at a fast speed. When a cultivator reached the Saint King realm, their soul power would be very strong and could cover a large area. After moving forward for 2 days, Night Sorrow stopped because the 9 regions' origin bead had pointed in a direction. The spiritual energy there was rich and there might be a mineral vein. When they arrived at the place where the 9 regions' origin bead was enlightening, Night Sorrow began to dig down while Zhu Jiuyan was on guard. After digging 5 to 6 meters, Yi Shang saw spirit stones, and they were of very high quality. You're too awesome. To think that you would be able to discover a spiritual stone mine. We're going to strike it rich. Zhu Jiuyan exclaimed excitedly. After all, a spiritual stone mine represented a large amount of spiritual stones. All right, let your doppelganger stand guard. Hurry up and get down to work. We need to get more spirit stones. The space-time treasure pagoda's time acceleration requires a large amount of spirit stones, Night Sorrow shouted upwards. Hearing Night Sorrow's call, Zhu Jiuyan came down to help Night Sorrow dig. The spirit stone vein was very large, which meant that it was a mature spirit stone vein. The level and quantity of spirit stones that Night Sorrow had excavated before were much higher. Night Sorrow and Zhu Jiuyan were like rats as they dug underground. After Night Sorrow stored the high-grade spirit stones into a storage ring, he put the rest into the space-time treasure pagoda. Night Sorrow and Zhu Jiuyan dug out the supreme-grade spirit stones and threw them into their storage rings. However, Zhu Jiuyan only took a portion of it. She meant that it was fine as long as they had some resources. It wasn't easy for Night Sorrow to support such a large family. Zhu Jiuyan was very clear that Night Sorrow had paid a huge price for the cultivation of the people of the 9-domain world. After digging for half a day, Night Sorrow had filled up a few storage rings with supreme-grade spirit stones. We're not far from the central region of the spiritual stone mine. There should be holy spirit stones. Then what are we waiting for? We need to have a lot of resources. Only then will we have enough confidence. We have to make a name for ourselves in the heaven mystic world, Zhu Jiuyan said. Night Sorrow nodded. He didn't expect Zhu Jiuyan to have such a strong sense of the big picture. She had a strong sense of collective pride. After digging for a while, Night Sorrow and Zhu Jiuyun really dug out Holy Spirit stones. There's at least 300 to 400 pieces. This is great. When they reached the center of the mine, Yisheng smiled, because the amount was truly delightful. One had to know that the Tiannan majestic empire had only asked the boundless world for a few hundred Saint Spirit stones, which was still quite painful. Zhu Jiuyun only took a small amount symbolically and asked Night Sorrow to keep the rest. The two of them used an entire day to clean up the spiritual stone mine. Other than spirit stones and holy spirit stones, Night Sorrow also dug out a lot of attribute crystals. While the two of them were drinking tea in the mine, Zhu Jiuyun stood up. Not good, we're surrounded by demonic beasts. At this time, Night Sorrow's soul power also sensed the situation. His soul power sensed that many lizards covered in green light had appeared. They're saint-level lizards. There are also a few Saint King-level lizards. 2 peak Saint Kings are leading the group. What the hell is going on? Night Sorrow cursed. The group of green light lizards was very strong. They're all lizards. There's no point in fighting. Let's run. Zhu Jiuyun's expression changed. This was a lot of pressure for her. Don't resist. Night Sorrow did not plan to fight. The truth was just as Zhu Jiuyun said. There was no point in fighting. After putting Zhu Jiuyun and her doppelganger into the spacetime pagoda, Night Sorrow directly used the spatial fissure to enter the spatial turbulence. Then, he shuttled through the spatial turbulence. However, the group of green light scorpions also moved. The peak Saint King level Scorpion King and Scorpion Queen also tore through space and entered the spatial turbulence to pursue Night Sorrow. At this time, Night Sorrow's attribute advantage was shown. The green light scorpions were of the wind attribute and were good at speed. However, Night Sorrow displayed the spatial attribute in the spatial turbulence and was faster. The spatial turbulence in a spatial world was not much of a threat to Saint Kings. It only affected their speed. Night Sorrow wanted to use this factor to affect his speed. After a while, he pulled away from the 2 scorpions. They could no longer catch up. Moreover, their energy consumption was much greater than Night Sorrow's. Night Sorrow's attribute was somewhat similar to the spatial turbulence, so his energy consumption was smaller. Even though the Scorpion King and Scorpion Queen were of the wind attribute, there was no comparison. After shaking off the Scorpion King and Scorpion Queen's pursuit, Night Sorrow exited the spatial turbulence. Then, he sent Zhu Jiuyun out of the spacetime pagoda. His V was the same as his V. I shook you off. Your legs are fast. You have a huge advantage here. It doesn't matter if you can't beat them. It's fine as long as you can run, Zhu Jiuyun said with a smile. It's not that we can't beat them. Didn't you also say that it's meaningless for us to kill the scorpions? Night Sorrow looked at Zhu Jiuyun and said. It's meaningless. I saw that even the Scorpion King with the wind attribute peak Saint King cultivation couldn't catch up to you. I'm confident, Zhu Jiuyun said with a smile. We're not afraid of encountering Saint King opponents. We can fight. Even if there are many opponents, we can still run. What we need to be careful of are the king-level existences. That's the most dangerous, Night Sorrow said. Zhu Jiuyun nodded. She and Night Sorrow had studied the information together. Naturally, she knew that there were 3 kings in the boundless territory. Night Sorrow would most likely encounter these 3 kings if he wanted to obtain the 10,000 longevity boundless fruit. After that, Night Sorrow and Zhu Jiuyun continued to explore. As they advanced, they collected materials. However, after experiencing the encirclement of the scorpions, the 2 of them became more cautious. After all, the boundless territory was too terrifying. Night Sorrow and Zhu Jiuyun entered the boundless territory first. Old Xiang was happy because he had avoided some trouble. However, the people from the Tiannan Empire didn't think so. They were very angry. This was equivalent to losing the opportunity to deal with Night Sorrow. Baidu the Myriad Dao into Expression book and read it for free. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.